want to talk about this separately, but I saw House of Dragon.
Yes, we should talk about it.
House of the Dragon.
We should talk about it.
Really good.
Really good.
Yeah, this one was. I was not really looking forward to watching this one. I just like. I saw trailers and I'm like, okay. And the recent trailer, I'm like, it's pretty good. But like, I saw it premiered. I'm like, oh, it's premiering. Oh, I guess I'll watch it. You know. But I was kind of worried, because like I'm getting myself back into Game of Thrones when I kind of shouldn't.
But yeah.
But I watched it. I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. I'm actually kind of liking this. And it's just the acting is great. The writing feels like back to like it's. To its roots, but it feels like a different show, unlike Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
it's just really good. You're just getting subtle world building again. Like every time, like it doesn't say, "Hey, look, remember this." It just shows like oh, it's House Baratheon. I'm like, hey, I know who that is. Like, or I know what that is. Like, you know what I mean? It's just really good. And the villain, Daemon Targaryen, as Matt Smith. He's great.
Yeah.
No, not the character.
I don't know. I don't even know if he's the villain. This is what I love.
Well, he's the setup antagonist,
Well, this is what I love about all of Game of Thrones and all of the world of Ice and Fire is that there was never really until the show started to decline. The show began to go, okay, these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. Whereas George R. R. Martin, he loves to write morally gray characters. And I think, to be honest, we know who the heroic characters of a Song of Ice and Fire are. Jon Snow, Ned Stark. Dany sometimes rides that line.
Well, she was for the first few seasons, obviously.
Yeah, she kind of rides that. Well, even in the books, she's a little bit more, morally gray.
Okay.
She does a little bit more morally gray stuff. In the show, she's shown as more heroic until she murders thousands of children.
As one usually does. On their bad day, of course.
Awful day.
We wake up sometimes.
God, those spells were just so annoying.
Yeah, right.
Go, yeah. No, but we know who the heroic characters are. But there's really, you can see the Lannisters as an antagonistic force. But still. Even sometimes you feel bad for Cersei. Yeah. Even sometimes you feel
like one time, but that's pretty much it.
I felt bad for Cersei a couple of times.
Like other than like her, I can't even think of one. But I know I was like 99%. I was always pissed off at her, even when she had her cool moments.
But still, I think the only antagonist of A Song of Ice and Fire was really the Night King, and the White Walkers.
What's his face? The guy who took over Winterfell.
Theon?
No.
Well, Theon.
The other guy.
Oh, Ramsay Bolton.
Ramsay Bolton. Yeah,
Ramsay Bolton was a villain.
Clearly,
he was. In the books, he's a little bit more, he's a little bit different, but he is clearly an antagonist. You're right. I completely forgot about him.
Yeah.
And of course, Joffrey. But
Joffrey, dude's a menace.
Joffrey, of course. But they're still, you can't. What I'm saying is you can't degrade a house or a person to the villain, and I think Daemon, I genuinely think that he has love for his brother,
he's not I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I'm not saying he's a wholly bad villain.
Yeah, he's toxic, but I love it.
But I figure he's going to be the villain because of the foreshadowing that happens. And I think if I remember correctly, when I was looking up the book, this part of the story and history is also called the Rogue Prince. So I would assume that
he's called the Rogue Prince.
Yeah, so I would assume that he would be an essential character.
So I mean, I don't want to spoil it because you haven't read the book, but it's like the book is just a bunch of short stories that
tells in a historical. This is what happened.
Exactly, because in A Song of Ice and Fire, as you're reading right now, it's told from the first person viewpoint. Like all the chapters are called John 1, 2, 3, Sam 1, 2, 3. All that stuff. But in this one, it's written down in a historical context by a maester, and the maester has two different viewpoints.
Accounts,
he has one of them that tells one of them is like a the leader of the Light of the Seven. I forgot what their names are, and he tells the story very blandly and with less accounts of squabbling. He tells it in a very political, professional kind of manner. And then the other one he has is a joker, is a jester from the court, and he tells the story in a way where there's a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of underlying sex
Septum,
themes.
sorry.
High Septum, yes.
Yeah, that's the one before. Yeah.
And there's a lot of underlying sex themes and a lot of quabbling and just a lot of drama. So he took both of those, accounts and kind of mashed them together to create that. So it seems that this show is actually taking it from like how Game of Thrones did, which is a third-person view because we're watching all of it. Yeah. But it was really great. Like I was very, very happy with it. I wasn't going to watch it, but my dad was watching it, and I walked downstairs and I was like, ugh, I don't want to eat even.
I guess.
And I was like, I don't even want to. And I was making food, and then all of a sudden, I'm 40 minutes in, watching with my dad standing there looking at it like, ha ha ha, this is great.
Your roles were reversed because that's what dads usually do. They pace around the room. They're kind of like, just change the TV, and then you're like, this is stupid, and you're like, and then like next moment you're just kind of silent, like. I'm enjoying this.
This also happened the first time I watched Dragon Ball. I was like, "This is so stupid," and I was like, "This is actually great." When I was
who was watching it then, or was it just on like you on the TV? Like,
it was me in middle school because I was like. Because I read it in elementary school, and I was like, "I'm too good for this."
I thought you meant someone was watching it.
No. But it's just everything I love about Game of Thrones is, like you said, the subtle, push towards the houses and all that stuff. Like I love hearing about houses that you're like, well, they're not around during Game of Thrones, so something happens to that guy, like, or the beginning of houses, like that guy in the joust, like he was the son of a steward, but that's the house dairy that comes from Dorne. So you're like, oh, these are the beginning of some of the houses that come into prominence. I love House Hightower. I love House Hightower. They don't have a big portion in the books, but Otto Hightower, he's like a weird mix between Tywin Lannister and Littlefinger, but he has like, he's honorable, kind of like Ned Stark, even though he sent his, like
daughter to like, hey,
daughter
you should see if this guy wants a happy time.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh yeah, and wear your dead mother's dress too. But like he does those scheming, but he's
a friend
dude,
to a extreme extent.
Yeah.
In a not good way.
And the turning one of the Valerians into a person of color, brilliant. He's from that
the guy with the white hair.
Yeah. The sea snake is what his nickname.
The guy
is.
who's married a husband to the queen.
The queen who never was.
Yeah.
I just realized if we go down this route, I'm never gonna stop talking about it. So let's just say I liked it. I thought it was great. However, YouTube was like, oh, you liked House of Dragons? Well, here's all these videos you've already watched about how bad season 8 of Game of Thrones was. And I was like, yeah, I'll give them another watch. And I went down that rabbit hole last night, and now I'm depressed again.
Yeah, all the actors were really good. Matt Smith, obviously. I just realized that
the actor for the King, was awesome.
Yeah, he was in Hot Fuzz and World's End. I realized, which is really funny.
One of the Kingsguard, Scott McTavish, he was Dwalin in The Hobbit.
The guy who was like he's like the right hand man for like the princess or whatever.
Yeah, and he was like when he saw
you're not a dwarf, like
exactly.
you're a regular
he's like
human.
Tall. Yeah. And when you see I'm always surprised because you see stuff and you're like, God, Gimli is taller than most of the cast of Lord of the Rings. It's crazy. But like when he saw Matt Smith on the throne and he's like, gods be good. I was like, God, it's like Dwalin, dude. It's so good. It's so good.
That opening shot for like Damon was so good.
Oh,
like it's like you can't even see him because most of the throne is covering him, and then when it shows the line, like it's just as I said. It's bright, the light's kind of like blocking it, but it's like zooming in, and he's kind of just sitting there. Oh man,
he looks.
It's
I'm just gonna say that wig looks absurd.
Yeah,
but his acting was so good, and his character was so good that it made me forget about it. Like I am a sucker, Edgar, for characters, for costuming wise, for characters with a one-sided cape. And this MFer had a one-sided cape that looked so freaking cool. Yeah. And when he came out, he was like, you are all stray dogs. Now you're a pack of hounds and stuff. And then he puts it like I love when people have that one-sided cape and they can put it over their arm and it's like it like covers their arm like for warmth and stuff. I'm like, God, it looks so cool. And his helmet and stuff during the joust, that looked really cool.
Yeah.
He's prepping up to be, you know, such a cool character. But I watched a bunch of reviews and a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it was boring other than Damon. And I'm like, I didn't get that at all. I thought every character.
No, I feel like most of the I can
yeah.
say in confidence that most of the general public really liked it.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Everyone really liked it and has new interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, it's all great. And I'm glad I have a new show to look forward to weekly.
Yeah.
Don't
get your hopes up though.
I mean, I'll be with weary caution, and it's, you know, I gotta say, like, the worst thing about it was the CGI. Surprisingly, a lot of this,
I wasn't bothered by
the
it.
dragons like had some horrible like
Sometimes
CGI.
I think it's when the humans are like touching them like this. I think that's when
the worst one. You should go back. The worst moment
Mm-hmm.
was when she says Dracarys and like it shows that upward shot and he's like burning. Like that's like probably the worst
bad?
one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it never.
That was a good scene though.
It never.
You know?
It never turned me off. I was just like, wow. I thought that's not good.
It's just such a. It feels like such a fresh of breath air because you know I feel like a lot of the shows, especially on Disney Plus, I feel like that a lot of the times they're trying to like they spell out the plot for you, but in this one, like it took me a while to be like, oh my God, the kid died. The Maester's arm.
Oh yeah.
Like the way that they tell you that is the Maester looks at it and his face changes, and there's a whole other
and
scene.
the king's reaction looks different. Yeah.
And there's a whole other scene in between that where Damon is like fighting and stuff like that, and then after that you get the confirmation. Oh, the baby's dead. So they don't tell you. I feel like if this was any, you know, normal television show, they would have gone, "Yo, Grace, the baby is dead," you know. And I feel like that would have happened, but they don't spell it out for you. It's just really, really good. It's a little bit disappointing when you hear the guy talk about, you know, the Song of Ice and Fire and and he's like,
oh yeah, it's gonna hype up. It's good. It sounds like really cool, but we know how it ends. Like,
yeah, it's the end of humanity, and you're like, and I like that. And then when it showed him holding the dagger that Arya used, I was like, no. I was like, stop talking about this. I was like, now you're making me
remember. I'm remembering.
Exactly. I'm like, now I'm remembering. Make this stop.
I'm just gonna make a fanfic in my head and predict something else that actually happened.
Well, a lot of people, I know how it ends, and I'm kind of like, but do you though? Because we don't have a canon ending to it yet, so I'm kind of.
Can we rewrite will this rewrite it? Like
exactly. That's what I'm saying. But yeah,
this is a pretty good show. This is like probably the only.
Edgar, I am just absolutely astonished by House of Dragon. I love it.
It's so good, right?
It's brilliant.
It's so just
It's season 1 of Game of Thrones. It's giving me that feeling.
And it's like I'm glad and kind of happy that it's kind of like people are watching Game of Thrones for the first time. Yeah. Do you know that? Yeah. So many people are watching it for the first time.
It's the biggest HBO like viewing ever. Yeah.
Yeah, they're watching Game of Thrones, and then new people are watching House of Dragons with obviously old Game of Thrones fan. So it's like getting a revival in a sense, like which is really great, and the ending still exists for Game of Thrones, but I'm just glad that it's getting. I hope Game of Thrones is like one of those shows that. Yeah, the ending's bad, but it just stays relevant within like the sphere, within like
I will say though, I've seen so many stupid posts everywhere saying, "Oh my God, Matt Smith is carrying this show," and I'm like, "What are you like? Dude, are you not watching the show?" Patty Considine,
it's Doctor Who stands, bro.
Yeah,
it's
of course,
like
obviously.
It's like that's all it is.
Or Daenerys stands are like, no, Rhaenyra's whatever her actress's name is, they're great. Don't get me wrong, they are amazing. But Patty Considine, at least for me, acting wise,
as Viserys,
as Viserys the First, is stealing. He's not stealing the show, but he is. Like
he's great.
He's giving us possibly the greatest Game of Thrones performance, like in the Game of Thrones live action.
And his
world.
character too is just like he's a guy who's just trying to make everyone happy. You know,
Exactly.
he's not
He's
a bad.
so conflicted. He's like a Shakespearean tragical character. It's so good.
Everyone's like giving him like shade for like choosing what's her face, the Otto's
For doing,
sister.
Alison Hightower.
Yeah, she like, but he didn't want to do that to begin with. But the only and first of all,
He would have
Otto
just stayed with Emma.
Otto
you know?
was the
Yeah.
one that threw his daughter
Yeah.
at her. But he chose like his feelings. He feels like if I had to suffer through this, I might as well like be somewhat content.
Yeah.
And he had no intention. He's just trying to like he wants his daughter to be happy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to choose his son over. He never wanted to choose his brother between his daughter for one thing.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't want to choose his new son and family over his daughter because that's such an awful thing. And he's like, no, for now, like I don't know what his intention is because it's kind of left not vague, but what he said to his daughters is, I'm gonna have no intention of replacing you. I want you to live your happy life. Marry whoever you want.
He said, but I promise you this, Rhaenyra, you will not be supplanted.
Yeah, there
you know. Which, first of all, like Viserys's language, so Shakespearean, and I love it. I love it as a Shakespearean actor myself. It is. I love it. Like the words he uses, supplanted, and in the next episode he says stuff like, "I will gouge out their eyes." I'm like, he's a Shakespeare character. Like I love it. He's like an older Romeo.
It is like 100 years.
Yeah,
100 years. How long is it from the?
It's 217 or something.
Yeah, 217 years. Yeah, 217 years ago from where we are. They talked a lot different. So
Yeah,
no surprise they
definitely.
talk differently.
Yeah, but it's great. Even though I know the ending, it's really like
I don't know
it's
the ending.
keeping me on the edge. I won't
It
say.
feels like it's history because it's just like it's fictional history,
is.
but it's all like documented and like. If I remember correctly, I saw a clip of Joffrey talking about not Daenerys,
Rhaenyra.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but it talked about her death. I don't know by who, but literally there are spoilers of House of Dragon in Game of Thrones because they talk about what happens. I heard rumors that Henry Cavill was in talks of joining the next season of House of Dragon.
That and I think that's a rumor, but I think because I don't think they would put if he is in this. He's somebody else. He cannot be a Targaryen. He can't be.
I heard I don't know.
He can't be. He looks. It would be so bad.
Ben, have you heard of a show
Edgar,
called The Witcher?
Yes,
You already know what he looks like in white hair.
I think he's great as Geralt. I really do. I think he would be an awful Targaryen. I do. I genuinely do. And also, putting him in that white wig, people will be like, Witcher. That's bad.
That's
do
funny.
That. No, it's not funny. I hate it.
He pulls his Geralt accent.
I
just to
can
do
see
it.
him as a Baratheon.
Gods, I was strong.
Exactly. Gods, I was Henry Cavill then. But what I do think is going to happen is I do think Elizabeth Olsen. That's the main thing that I hear, and I can see that she can
really?
play.
That she might be cast in the show.
I can see her as a Targaryen, but I can also see her as a Red Priestess. In the books, the story, the Dance of Dragons does get magical, and it does have to do with some Red Priestesses. So I'm like, Elizabeth Olsen would be perfect for a Red Priest.
I was watching Game of Thrones. I feel like I forget how much like Viserys does so many horrible things and says so many horrible things.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he doesn't get that much hate as much as Joffrey did. It's just Joffrey was just younger and
had a position of power.
Yeah, there you
where
go.
he
Yeah,
could do that.
and he never got really
Viserys would have
punished.
been just as bad. But
Yeah.
he didn't have any power.
He just
so
got away. Joffrey
yeah.
just got away with it, which made everyone hate him.
Exactly.
But if the roles were switched, Viserys would have been the most hated character, like in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Viserys would have done that to like that woman. Remember when he like took that one,
And he's like, you tell her to give me orders or something like that.
Like pinned her against the wall and stuff. You remember when he did that? I don't know if Viserys would have done that, but yeah.
Oh, you mean Joffrey?
Joffrey.
Oh yeah, when he was
I don't
like
know
shooting
if Viserys would have
yeah.
done what Joffrey did.
Yeah.
But Paddy Considine killing it. Absolutely brilliant performance last episode. Like his fire scene. God, bro. He's so good. And also Viserys.
Oh, when he was standing by the bonfire? Yeah.
Viserys isn't that deep in the book. Like George R. R. Martin was like, he basically made the character himself.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, and he's writing it now, so
Yeah.
he's helping with the writing. Well, not writing or anything, but I'm sure he's supervising.
Yeah,
What's
definitely.
going on.
Yeah. All right. HOTD. Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
How
Drama. Well,
yeah.
on-
So the previous episode, that one is Daemon returning to King's Land, or it starts with Rhaenyra in Storm's End in the Stormlands, and
Yeah.
she's trying to find a husband.
A suitor,
right?
yeah.
And they're all old or really, really young, and it's like, guys, she's
Go kid
like,
for like
yeah.
standing up his ground against that guy who's back
Yeah.
talking to him.
Book fans really enjoyed that because the book fans know of an ancient blood feud against the Brackens and the Blackwoods, and that kid was a Blackwood, and everybody likes the Blackwood because the head of the House Blackwood in the books, he has this awesome raven, this awesome cape made of raven feathers. And they have this blood feud against the Brackens, and they're always fighting. But yeah, the little kid coming out and gutting that Bracken, awesome. You know? It was really cool.
I a lot. Yeah.
So but this was the episode that you were like, that you sent me and said, "This is
the episode. Yeah,
because it was
because we already knew that Rhaenyra had like. We her and Rhaenyra with her relationship with Daemon. I was like, what was that? It's like, what was that? And it's like already when Daemon like gives her like the necklace in the first episode, we're like, okay,
book readers are like,
because we already know how Targaryens are like, because like even Cersei like they wed each other and like to keep the family line clean, you know?
Yeah,
and it's so weird. I see so many people who are like so okay with this, and people find this romantic in a way.
Listen,
when
Edgar,
in Game of Thrones, like
listen, Edgar, when you read or watch the first chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, and you see twincest, everything else looks pales in comparison. And George R. R. Martin actually talked about how
everyone jokes like Targaryens know how to do it right.
Exactly. But George R. R. Martin was like, yeah. Like, I showed them twincest so that when other incest happens, they're not as grossed out. And it worked. It obviously worked. You know?
Oh, man.
Which is great.
Because everyone's like, when you think about it, they're not that bad.
Yeah, oh, my God. No.
Yeah, but this is like the episode when Daemon brings out Rhaenyra to like the public, which is really cool, by the way. I really like that. And she takes the same passageway that Arya takes.
Yeah.
Like when she sneaks out of the castle in King's Landing.
Interesting thing about those halls, Maegor the Cruel, who was the king before Jaehaerys II, or Jaehaerys the First, I think.
I don't know who these people are.
Jaehaerys the First was the predecessor of Viserys. He was the guy in the first episode who was the old
grandfather,
who was doing that stuff. Maegor was the guy who was before that. Maegor, he's nicknamed Maegor the Cruel. He was the worst king in Westeros history, basically. Oh. And that's what everybody is afraid of.
Joffrey, bro, I think.
Yeah, well, he's up there, but Maegor was worse actually because he had dragons and Joffrey didn't.
Yeah.
But
imagine if Joffrey had dragons.
Awful. But Maegor, he built the Red Keep where all of this stuff takes place, and when he built the Red Keep, he had them build these passageways, right? We see in the first episode, Daemon is spying on the council behind like the walls. That's one of the passageway that Maegor made. Wow. So that he made all of these. And so afterwards, he invited all of the stonemasons who made those passageway and made the Red Keep in for a feast, and then he murdered all of them so that only he knew the secrets of the Red Keep.
Clever girl.
Yeah, so nobody else knows the secrets of the Red Keep except for a few people like Viserys knows about, or Varys. Yeah, Varys knows about them in the main Game of Thrones series. And Daemon knows about him in this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was so fast. I love just that stuff. I would love to see a series about Maegor the Cruel because he's so awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He had 8 wives, by the way.
Like King Henry.
Yeah.
Henry VIII.
But they were all alive. They were all just hanging out at the
harem.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
But yeah, they visit, a brothel.
Yes.
We might have to age restrict this episode, at least in.
Well, let's not go into too much detail.
No, yeah. But some stuff happens. They kiss Damon and Rhaenyra, which is like, hey yo, where that happens. And
it's interesting. It's interesting that Damon has sexual inefficiencies. Because in Game of Thrones there are stuff that pairs sexual inefficiencies to evilness. So maybe he's not so much of a good guy. And in the next episode, his wife is like, I knew you couldn't finish. And it makes it seem like that maybe on their consummation night he couldn't finish, and she made fun of him for it, and that drove the wedge.
Okay.
Which I think is fascinating.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just took it as he could be being smart and like, no, I'll make her come after me or something like that. But I thought I was like, maybe he just wanted
Well, I think it was.
her.
I think it was when he felt like he wasn't in charge of it. Like, I think he thought he was manipulating her, but she was into it, and then he was like,
no.
Like when she started like biting his lip, he was like, "What are you doing? Why are you?
You're not
into
supposed to
this?"
be into this.
Yeah, exactly.
When the joke goes too far, you're like, wait.
Yeah, exactly.
But Otto had has one of his spies like overseeing this, and then he's like, bro, you're not gonna believe what just happened. They were like totally macking.
I don't think Otto was spying on Rhaenyra.
No, he wasn't
specifically,
spying
because I think it was just the White Worm was spying on Damon and her, and then gave the information to Otto. Because I don't think Otto. We know Otto wants his grandson to be on the throne, but I also think that he genuinely cares about Viserys, and to tell him, hey, your brother and your daughter, they were making out like hard.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't want to do that,
Yeah. But it doesn't look good when he's like, when all he's after is, for his grandson.
Brilliant acting from Patty Considine, by the way.
Yeah.
Amazing acting.
Yeah.
He's like, I will gouge out their eyes. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, give me that Shakespearean language, baby.
You ruined
So
her.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah,
he's
it's
like,
so good.
when he kicks him, like, oh, like Damon's drunk.
He's like, you already have a wife. Like, what the heck? Yeah, it's so good, dude.
Oh, man. But, like, that whole scene, and, like, Damon's, like, wet her to me. And you're like, that was, like, another moment. You're like, oh, my God. Like, where we just lose it.
And then, of course, before that, Rhaenyra comes back into the Red Keep.
And she is in heat,
Yeah,
and
she
then
is.
she lures Sir Kristen Cole into like. And he's
I
like,
haven't heard anybody explain her as in heat.
dude, she was
Like, she's a
all
dog.
like on all cylinders. She's like, it's gonna happen tonight, one day or another.
She's like 16, 17.
She was teased, and it's like, no, it must happen. I want it.
Yeah.
Like it's like.
And Crispy Kane is like,
Crispy.
is like
Poor
he
Crispy.
comes in and he's like,
Wait a
"What?"
minute, how'd you
He's
get
like,
here?
How did you get? And he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna report this." And then, so everybody is. We'll talk about this next episode. But I actually feel really bad for Crispy Creme.
People are
because
hating on him for like.
a lot, like way too much.
They
I feel
misunderstand
like,
him, and it's really interesting. And we'll talk about it for this.
But there's also that power dynamic. you
Exactly,
know? Like,
exactly.
he cannot
People-
say no to his prince. Like
people
that
say,
is
People say he could have just said no and whatever, and you're like, you're wrong. She is
Yeah.
queen.
She is a princess. You know?
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
is.
Or
I mean,
princess, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it is also, it is against your vows because the Night's Watch, not the Night's Watch, the King's Guard, they swear a vow of chastity. They're not like the Night's Watchmen who just swear to take no wives and hold no lands.
Yeah.
The King's Guard do that and then some. They swear not to have sex with anybody.
Yeah.
Because if they have attachments to anyone, that will obstruct their job of protecting the king and his family. So he swears a vow of chastity, and added on to that, having sex with the princess out of wedlock is one of the highest crimes in all of not just Westerosi history, but in also English medieval history.
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing you could do.
Exactly.
So I do see people are being like, "What are you doing?" But also like he does love her. She kind of loves him, but
Yeah, I would argue that she doesn't.
she doesn't. No, she's young,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like it is. There's a very, very good story in the books about a Night's Watchman. I think his name is Awen Oakheart, and he, I don't know, he's an Oakheart of some vein, but he leaves the King's Guard, and he falls in love and breaks his vows with a Dornish woman. She's a part of the Martell family.
Yeah.
And he says he's like, he feels really bad about breaking his vows. And she's like, one of the best chapters of the book. And she's like, why do you feel bad about breaking your vows? Like, why you feel bad about having sex with me? You should feel bad about serving awful rulers like Joffrey. Like awful rulers like the Mad King. That's what you should feel bad about. And it's really good, a really good tale of, oaths really don't matter,
Yeah.
And when you're, that's the whole point of Jaime's character.
But sometimes they don't matter. But like in the world where like people care about that stuff,
Yeah,
that's
it does.
all you have. That's all you have to your name, and like all you have to your reputation, and that comes in later in the following episode. We like the way.
But what is reputation
Yeah.
when it's up against a promise? Like Jon Snow with Ned Stark. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I just love how when Viserys starts like accusing like Otto,
Really acting,
and, like
right?
yeah, and he goes at him. He's
Reese
like,
Evans.
he like takes off the hands like pin so nonchalantly. Otto's like.
Yeah.
He's like
Otto's
he's like,
devastated.
Yeah, he like takes it off so like yoink, like, and then Otto's face like, oh, this is a joke, right?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he just like
and Viserys accuses him of basically killing his brother.
Yeah.
Like he was like 5 days. That's all it took you to rise to power. And he was like, which I think is a bit. I don't think Otto Hightower did that. I don't think he is malicious like that. But I think obviously, like I think it's fascinating that like Viserys's right hand is rotting, and maybe now that he's gotten rid of his hand, his corrupt hand, maybe the rotting will stop. But
I don't know,
we'll see,
but I just anything else you want to touch up? I want to continue that, but anything you want to touch about in this episode before? Like Otto's character.
part 2.
Really. I would say like this is like, oh my god, because like it's like drama. This is like everyone's just talking about how Game of Thrones feels like a biblical tale of history. This feels like Housewives in a medieval, like a reality show, like in real life. You know what I mean?
This feels like a Shakespearean tragedy, which is like a Real Housewives.
Like a reality show. Like you did not just say like or something like slapping in the face and like.
But you see what I mean when I mean like a Shakespearean tragedy, because like I feel like a lot of these problems are so avoidable. All of Romeo and Juliet, you're like, what are you doing?
Wait 1 minute.
He kills himself, and she's like, like what's up? And you're like, bruh. But yeah, so
Otto as a character, I really like. I don't know whether what we'll see in the future because I haven't read the books. But I don't know how the Dance of Dragon happens, how big the coming conflicts are. It's setting up a lot of
I
things.
can tell you
really
it's big, but
huge. But Otto, his performance was my favorite in this episode.
Even though he only had like 2 minutes.
I really like it. I really like it a lot, and like how he can see. Like he talks about whether we believe it or not, whether it's true or not. He says that all he cares about is the kingdom's peace and like its security, and he believes the only way to keep that is if Aegon becomes the king that way, because he knows, at least he believes, that if Rhaenyra becomes king, war will break out, all hell will break loose.
Well, especially since he has the name of the first king. Aegon, Aegon the Conqueror. Yeah. So it's like, that's going to be. By the way, in the previews, we saw the actor for Aegon, and he is.
I saw that.
He's the son of
David Tennant.
David Tennant.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Right?
Yeah, really cool.
I mean, everybody was like
the son of the Doctor from Doctor Who and an actual Doctor Who.
Yeah. But I know everybody's like,
someone said, "Is that with Finn Wolfhard?" I'm like, no.
But anyway.
Right?
But so it's really great. We start off the episode with, in my opinion. Daemon doing something I think that's unforgivable. Like, people were, absolutely pooping on Christian Cole this episode, And I'm like, guys, Damon arguably did the worst thing in this
People,
episode.
it says like it's funny. Damon is like does like illegal things, and people just find Kristen Cole and like characters like Alicent. They just find them as petty and like very like.
I think it's because it reminds them of somebody they know, maybe. I don't know.
Like, ooh, why do you have to tell her like the secret or something like that?
I
You know
don't
what
think Kristen was even petty. I think he did that to like retain his honor.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's all.
It's anger,
because
like-
it's all he has to his name. That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's the only thing he knows. It is the highest level that a Cole has ever reached.
And I remember people saying, they're like, who cares? And it's like, just be her little side piece. Like, who cares? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's much more deeper than that.
Yeah.
Yes, that is like literally like the best. Like one could argue that that's like the best case scenario. You don't have to be married to her. You can like have sex with her all you want, and you'll still have your job. But like it's a lot more to that. Like you know what I mean? And that's why I really like Kristen Cole as a character.
Yes, I do too. And it's interesting because I only know Christian Cole of where he is in the books because he's not really even a character in of Fire and Blood until the war breaks out, and he's a completely different character from when he was at the beginning. So I was like, are they going to do something different with him? How is he going to get to A to B? And after these couple of episodes, I got, I see it. And I was like, and it's brilliant. Like it's really
I heard
good.
the change that I don't know what the other guy's name is.
Yes, Joffrey.
Joffrey. There you go.
If you're
I forget they
Joffrey,
say-
don't attend a wedding in King's Landing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But Joffrey gets killed by Kristen Cole, and I heard that he does die, but it was supposed to be in a tournament of some sorts, right?
Yes,
Like-
which is more, and we'll get there. But this is one of the problems I had with the episode. I just think that they mix those two things together. But I think killing somebody in a wedding is a much more. It's such a higher offense than killing somebody accidentally in a tournament. You know, even if he did it on purpose in a tournament, you could just say it was by accident because people die in tournaments. We saw that in the first episode.
Yeah.
But I think killing somebody in a wedding and then also punching the future king regent, like
I don't know.
I'm like, how did he get out?
I
Like,
remember
who let him get out and go to the Godswood?
Yeah.
You know,
I remember seeing a comment saying, but still, by Dothraki standards, this wedding was kind of boring.
because Khal Drogo or
Two people,
yeah.
or like, how many was it? 5 people need to die in order to be a.
Well,
like,
Jorah Mormont says that Dothraki think that a wedding without blood is bad.
And uneventful,
uneventful, you know.
but that was this funny comment I saw. But
Yeah.
this episode,
So we've had the red wedding, we've had the purple wedding where Joffrey died, and now we have the green wedding.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, her entrance, super powerful.
Yeah.
Like whenever he's commenting, like, "What's the colors that the High Towers raised when at war?" Green. And like, ooh, and
Yeah,
like she's just starting drama, and there's like when she calls Rhaenyra's stepdaughter, I'm like, ooh, nice, cold.
really
like,
nice, right?
Yeah.
Old
and
Town,
Damon's
yeah.
entrance, I'm like, who's letting this guy in?
Yeah.
And like,
It just goes to show Viserys is like, he's so weak, dude. Like, we love him, but like he will let his family roll all over
Tywin
him.
would like not stand for that at all. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
not even Joffrey, like either.
Exactly.
Like-
Tywin would be like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
he'd be like, send him to the dungeons. Like, I don't care, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so since we're just at the wedding, we'll go back to other stuff. But freaking Rhaenyra and Daemon almost like smacked like in the middle.
Dude!
I'm like, what are you doing?
You're in public. Like,
I saw Viserys, but I saw this post that was
there's but this is such a comedic. It was such a. I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but that entire scene was so funny. He's like eating. He's like, what's going on over there? Like, what's happening?
He's like, what the heck?
But even before that, Damon is flirting with the Valerian chick. What's her name?
with
Miss,
Lena Valerian or something. Yeah, Lena. It is Lena.
Lena.
Valerian.
I was like, oh my god, this dude cannot stop and control himself.
Yeah.
He's flirting with her, and then he goes straight for Rhaenyra right after.
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be hilarious, but I was like, what is happening?
I was like, bro, stop. And poor Viserys. Like, I saw this post that was like, I saw 2 posts that I want to mention. One of them was Viserys just wants to build his Lego monument, and y'all stressing him out. And I saw this other one that was like, Viserys does nothing. Rhaenyra and Daemon prepare for trouble and make it double to defend the world from devastation. Like, it's true. It's true. Like, Daemon and Rhaenyra literally are the spawn of all of his problems.
Every time you banish Daemon, he comes back stronger, prouder, bolder than ever. Like,
oh my god! But
before this, we see Viserys is going to visit Lord Corlys to wed
Driftmark.
To wed Rhaenyra to his son.
Which is, it's fascinating because the Valerians in Game of Thrones are far more weak. Like, they're such a smaller house, so maybe something happens in this war. Like, it's just like the Hightowers, they are not, they're not as big as, let's say, somebody like the Tyrells and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens to them in this series, because Driftmark looks like kind of like a kingdom, kind of like a castle. We didn't see the town of Driftmark, but that's the castle. Yeah. Because Driftmark is a whole island and town. Yeah.
But I really thought they were going to say no, like to the proposal, and you can see that that Lord Corlys' wife,
the queen who never was.
Yes, how she already sees. Yeah, they swore vows that Queen Rhaenyra will be queen, but this is bad. You're putting our son in danger. Like, this is not going to end well. How she can see things.
Yeah,
like
she doesn't care anymore. I think it's because she sees how badly being king is, how awful it is.
But like, she knows specifically what being a queen will end up, what it'll lead to, and she's kind of like, as much as I don't like how she's getting the treatment that I didn't get, I'm kind of glad I'm not getting it, because it's not going to end well. We know, with a queen being a queen, will end up in Westeros. She's
also saying like the towns or the people of Westeros aren't going to accept a woman queen. So basically, the sea snake going in this engagement is literally preluding them to war. They are bringing Driftmark into an open war, basically, because when Aegon is older, like, people will side with him, and we already know the Hightowers will. So
really interesting stuff. Rhaenyra proposes that he's like, hey, you have a side piece because you're, he's gay and he has a relationship with Joffrey.
Joffrey, who is nicknamed the Knight of Kisses.
Yeah, who comes up with these names?
Well, he's. I think in the books, Joffrey's house is a banner with a bunch of red lips on it. So I think that's why they nicknamed him. I don't think it's because he's gay, but also, like, it's easier. It's obviously easier to be, openly gay when you have a dragon.
Like, who's gonna question me now? Like,
exactly. Because it seems like everybody knows it, but it's like his family has dragons, so who's gonna stop him?
She's like, you have a side piece, I have a side piece. Let's work things out. And then when she proposes to Kristen Cole, is like, no. He's like, and people started hating on Kristen Cole when he proposed.
Yes.
And like, he's like, run away with me, and like, whatever. It's like, why would she do that? You're dumb. Just take the offer. I'm like, I feel like people really misread that situation, and I feel like it was very in character. And yes, while Rhaenyra's kind of being not dumb and not noticing why he wouldn't take that, I mean, it makes sense. She's young, and she's, I just feel like people like hated on him for the wrong reasons, and like all that made sense for me.
Well, it makes sense that he's utterly mortified, right?
Yeah,
because if you've read the books, you know that there are at least two Kingsguard who have broken their vows of chastity and have suffered fates worse than death. Basically, I think one of the Kingsguard fathered like 3 bastards, and they cut off his pearly bits and sent him to the wall, Reek style. And then there was another one. This one's brutal. There was another one who broke his vow, but he was actually in love with someone, and he secretly married them. So he had a secret wife. I don't know which king it was, but I believe that they put him in the dungeon and then chopped him up into itty-bitty bits, piece by piece, and starting from his toes so that he would feel it. So they would start from like his fingers and like his toes and stuff, and chop him up into little bits and feed it to him, and until he died.
I thought it was gonna go in one direction, and I was like, what?
No. So it's like that's why he's like,
It's not just that, but he
Yeah.
also he cares about his honor.
Yeah.
He's like, I came from nothing. This is literally all I have.
he
Like, you know what I
sullied
mean?
his white cloak. That's
Yeah.
what he says. And the only way to get it back is for him to marry Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And when she says no, he suffers a crisis because that was the only way.
And
for
that
him to get that honor
and
back.
that and it's not even that. It's just how she just offers the proposal. It's like, hey, but you can stay as my. Is like, no, I actually do care about you. Even
Yeah.
if it wasn't about honor, I actually care about you. Like, I
But
love you.
it is still a little bit hypocritical because we know a couple episodes ago, Kristen Cole had an explorative youth, where he slept with obviously many women, and now he's like, come with me, and she's like 16, and he's like, I don't know, like if I wanna, like it's his, know, it's his fault for falling in love with a 16-year-old. Like, let's be honest, because they're all over the place. But but I do feel for him, and I really like when he said, I think that the actor is really good. I really like when he said, but rather than torturing me, doing all this stuff, just kill me. Like, just do it, which I really
because he tells Alicent.
Yeah.
And
the Lady Alicent.
people got mad at him for saying that. He's like, he was clearing a misunderstanding. He thought he was gonna die, or he thought he was gonna be tortured and all that. That's why he revealed that information. He's like, why'd you have to say? And like, first of all, he didn't. That wasn't what Alicent was going after. But by the way she was phrasing it, he thought it was like, all right, I'm gonna get tortured. Just kill me. He's like, this is what happened. I admit it. Fine. Like, I did it. Like, but just end me. And then she was like, oh, that's not what I wanted. But wow, okay.
But it's still, I still see a lot of people. I think that when you watch this series as everybody is gray and nobody is really a good character. The only character I really sympathize in all of this is Viserys. Like, I genuinely think he's a good guy that got put in this awful situation. I think he's
with Otto a bit,
I sympathize with him too. I sympathize with Rhaenyra, but
Rhaenyra,
the person who I really utterly, I also sympathize with Alicent as well. She was literally
people are
put
hating
into
on
this,
her for like, why you have to I don't know. People are hating
Yeah.
on both her and Kristen Cole.
But
for,
they're all supposed to be gray. That's the whole point of this story. And I hate when people are already choosing sides. And I'm like, guys, Rhaenyra has made some awful, she may be an okay person, but she's an awful politician.
Yeah.
Like, have made possibly some of the worst decisions.
She's
you
lucky
could've
that she
ever
even had a
made.
choice to in the first place.
No,
to,
Viserys said Jaehaerys would have disowned her.
Yeah.
And he definitely would have. So I'm just like, she's made awful decisions. And I also, I'm sorry, I cannot get down. I think he's an awesome character, but I cannot get down with Daemon. He has done some awful things. Even things he says in passing, where he was like, yeah, I tortured 1,000 sailors at the Stepstone. Why? Why did you do that? But there's just stuff. After this episode, it's inexcusable. Because number one, he said she was really, really ugly, and I'm like, "What do you like?"
She was really interesting, and she gave me
she looks like a Stark,
and she gave me what's the name of the High Garden lady from
Tyrell, Olenna.
She gave me Olenna vibes,
A young Olenna.
Yeah, she gave me those vibes, and I really wish we get to see more of her character.
It's interesting because her and Damon's personality are probably very similar. The way that
they're both tops, they're both they both wear the pants.
And she went for the throat, bro.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh, you can't finish. Oh, you got disinherited. Oh, where's your dragon at?" She was like, "Oh, I got you."
Did the horse just get spooked? Is that it?
I think the horse got spooked. There are some theories where horses who aren't used to the smell of dragons, they get spooked by the smell of dragons, and then they back up. And, of course, she's paralyzed. But I actually think Daemon was going to let her live until she said, I knew you couldn't finish, Craven. And he's like, all right, well, I'll finish right now. You know, which I'm like, I get it. He's an awesome character. I think if I think if Daemon was played by anybody other than Matt Smith, people wouldn't like him.
Yeah.
I'm just saying Matt Smith is perfect.
Yeah, he's so good, dude. He really is great.
He's killing it.
All these actors are cast
brilliant.
perfectly.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to like how we'll see the older versions of them.
Yes.
Like, and because we're getting a time skip this episode.
Emma Darcy is going to be really good.
She looks a lot like how the mother looked. So
Yes.
they casted her perfectly.
Perfectly, yeah. And then Allison's older version,
Olivia Cook. Yeah.
Olivia Cook looks like the same person.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even like I see some of the complaints with Emily Darcy and Amelia Alcock, but like those two, like how did you do this? Like how did you find these like people on the planet and they just happen to act and be British
and King Viserys just looks like a dying corpse. By this point. He's like so done, bro. He's like over it. It's like
the final imagery of I really like it. The rat coming to feast on the blood.
Yeah.
Like what Viserys. I like that theme. Like Viserys said in the first episode, the crows coming to feast on our corpses. When you hold a position of power, that's what happens when you die, is crows come to feast on your corpse. And that's what they're doing on Viserys right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward. I like the series a lot. I'm really enjoying it.
It's the best television, I think, since maybe the end of Breaking Bad, beginning
I'm
of
watching
Game of
Better Call
Thrones.
Saul season 5 right now. I haven't seen the new season. It's so good right now. But like these two shows in terms of other than anime are like really hitting it for me.
Yeah.
And if they keep they haven't hit their what do you call it? They haven't hit their climax episodes like Game of Thrones season 1 did.
No.
Like you know what I mean? Like their peak episodes of season 1, they haven't hit that yet, but it's going great so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all these actors are great, but I think Sean Bean, like as Ned Stark, just took season 1 of Game of Thrones to another level.
Yeah.
You know, it will get to that point, but I think right now it's just a completely different thing.
Especially when George R. R. Martin wrote this like a history textbook rather than the lines as verbatim by what they're going off of. But at least we know
Game of Thrones is a Song of Ice and Fire is a POV story.
But at least we'll know that the events will go off by smoothly and like everything will turn out like great in terms of plot and like and character growth, and they'll have to base everything off that.
And it's great because they have an ending.
Yeah, exactly.
So no going off the rails, and also there are just some parts where you're like, George wrote this. And there's so much love and lore from the books that are just like, it's really good. Before we leave, how about Halbrand Strong, bro, going in there and picking up the princess?
Oh yeah,
and the new hand. I
want to see more Otto. I want to see more Halbrand Strong because I wish I thought we were going to see a lot more. House of the Dragon. If we focus on Daemon a little bit with his new wife.
Yes.
Lena.
So there's 3, of course, different things going on with the kind of leading characters of the series, which is Alicent, Rhaenyra, and Daemon. In my opinion, those are the 3 biggest, at least so far. I think the standout have been Viserys and Otto. But they're really good. Yeah, those 3 are the main ones of especially this episode. So Rhaenyra at this point, she's kind of dealing with this stuff that, of course, we start the episode. She just had a baby, and complete visceral, right? Just
always is. They really hammer in on like, hey, pregnancy kills you.
So hard to watch, man.
Yeah,
especially as like Lauren watches it and she's deadpan, and she's like. Oh yeah, that wasn't that hard to watch, and I'm like, that's the hardest thing for me to like watch, dude. Like
I'm a man and I'm struggling.
Exactly. What I really like about it, and what Game of Thrones is really good at doing, is like these one shots, these one takes that span over a long period of time. And the actress talked about that at the end of the episode, where she said that was all one take from the beginning of the episode to when she like sees Alicent in the room, you know? So she was like, she did that take like 20 times, and she was like, they went with the final take because she felt like the exhaustion of childbirth on that 20th take, which is so crazy, you know? But what also is big is what Game of Thrones is really well known for and what they did with the episode Second Sons, which was the second or third episode.
Second in his name.
Second of his name, yeah.
Episode 3.
Yes, when Daemon faced off against the crab feeder.
Yeah.
What they do in those like war battle shots, it's like these one takes where you just follow him and it makes it feel like it's chaotic and stuff. Battle of the Bastards had a really good one where like Johnson was dodging all these arrows and stuff, and he was like, ugh!
Probably the most like the most remembered action scene in Game of Thrones. Like.
I love that where he's like, get word to, and then somebody hits him with an arrow and he's like, all right.
Yeah.
He was like, okay. You know, but in this, it really hits home that a main theme of this story is that for the women, their battlefield is the pregnancy bed. So they had that one shot of her battle, which is just so good, right? I really, really liked that. But yeah, so Rhaenyra has that stuff, and her legitimacy is getting, you know, is getting questioned. Alicent is scheming with the Lord Larys Strong, otherwise known as the Clubfoot.
He's the guy with the cane.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And he's a bit of a psychopath.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. She's like talking with him. It's like, yeah, she looked at me funny. All right, next day that woman's dead. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's like, I'll take care of it. Like anyone that messes with you, I was like, whoa, chill out. Like,
exactly. And I mean, like he was looking at the people like with a little bit of a smile while their tongue was getting.
Yeah, in the recent episode. Yeah.
Because
he ends up in episode 6, he ends up killing Harwin. Right?
Yeah.
Harwin Strong.
Harwin and Lionel Strong, the Hand of the King at that time.
The dad. He kills his dad too?
Yeah, that's why Otto's Hand of the King in the next episode.
Yeah, I thought he just left. Oh, I knew Harwin died. I didn't know the dad died.
Yeah.
And it just clicked to me like literally days after that episode. I'm like, oh, he killed his brother? I'm like, I didn't even know they were related. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes you miss things. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he is. I mean, they didn't really hit home that they were brothers, you know. They had a little bit of a other than their names, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
But I mean, he also did this for his own ambitions, because with Lionel and Harwin gone, Larys becomes
the
Lord
of the House.
The Lord of the House, Lord of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
So that is huge for him. So he's like two birds with one stone, baby.
Yeah.
You know? And his speech at the end, where it was really gorgeous. It reminded me of a scene that would be in the books, is like where he had like a monologue and it was showing everything that happened, and he was like, what are children but a weakness? At the end of the episode, he was like, it's best to go about life without the burdens of love or loving anybody. He is only fancying Alicent because he sees opportunity for him.
Yeah.
I also don't think it's a coincidence that Larys, Littlefinger, and Varys, and his name is kind of a mix of the two. Larys, you know. So I don't think it's a coincidence.
No one will notice, right? Like,
yeah, no.
But it was written like that beforehand. Right?
No, of course. George R. R. Martin
definitely
did. George R. R. Martin during this time, like I said, these in the past podcast, these characters, there are so many characters in Fire and Blood that they're like, that he kind of named them on a whim, like all the Tullys, which we'll eventually get to in when the Dance of the Dragon, the war begins to happen. He named them after Muppets. So the leader of the Riverlands right now is Kermit Tully, and his brother Oscar Tully,
Porky,
and his father Elmo Tully.
Yeah, Cookie Monster Tully.
Yeah, well,
Big Bird Tully. Like,
I forgot what the other one is.
Grouch.
No, not Grouch.
Bernie.
It might have been Ernie Tully. Yeah, it might have been, or Bernie Tully. But you know,
I like to, those, that meme, or not a meme. You know that like fun trend where like name a movie or show where you replace the entire cast full of Muppets, but one character remains human. Yeah. And everyone like said like the Batman, but the Batman is human, but everyone else is a Muppet.
That'd be great. I love that. Yeah,
it'd be funny in Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, everybody but Daenerys is a Muppet. That'd be great. That'd be great. But yeah, so I always think that's interesting. So I think he was kind of naming these people on a whim.
I don't know how you do that.
And it's not even like, Kermit Tully, he is a big player, like in the war to come. Yeah. Like he is a huge player. He's the leader of the Riverlands, So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. My favorite character and out of the mainline books is about to show up. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I can tell you his name. His name's Kragan Stark.
Oh yeah,
Awesome.
him. Yeah.
Awesome guy. Awesome. He's so sick.
Nice. How do
He's one
you
of my favorite characters.
how do you feel about the time jumps and what the audience is reacting to the time jumps? Because like I feel like while a lot of people who really love the source material or just really like Game of Thrones and know a lot of this stuff,
Yes.
a lot of the audience watching this show are like a normie base.
Yes.
You know, most of the audience are just people who are not used to this or don't know why this is happening, why these time jumps are happening. A lot of people are frustrated. They don't like it. Some people are confused to why all the time jumps are happening.
Yeah.
I kind of really don't mind. I don't care. I like it because we have to. Because like I would assume, I haven't read the books, but I would assume that these like episodes are just like one sentences. It just happens like, oh, here's who dies and like what happens, but nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, I agree with you. I think the normies are afraid that what is happening here is the same that what happened in season 8 of Game of Thrones. Here's the thing, is that I agree with you that I've seen these people. I've seen comments that have said, like, why did we skip here 10 years? That should be a whole season.
Yeah.
You know? But you do know in the books, George R. R. Martin wrote, and then nothing happened this 10 years until this moment. You know, like during that 10-year time jump, where we are right now is called, I think, the Year of Blood or the Spring of Blood or something, where everything begins to go wrong. You know, Lena dies.
If it hasn't already, if it wasn't obvious
exactly.
already.
Yeah, Lena dies, Harwin dies, Lionel Strong dies, you know, and that's when it begins to,
what's the brother's name? Lena's brother?
Oh, Laenor?
Yeah, he dies, but not
he
really.
Dies, yeah.
I heard in the book it says he dies, but the show does a twist on it,
The book
right?
is more ambiguous.
Yeah.
I think it is still meant to be ambiguous in the books. I don't think George is... I think George still wanted that to be up to audience interpretation. However, the books is very much, and then this person died, and then these 3 people died, and then this person died, and then this one, and then this dragon, and then this dragon died, and then this person riding that dragon died.
It's literally the Bible for like the first like 5. It's like nothing. There's no story. It's just like, oh, he had 5 children, and then 4 died, and then blah blah blah.
Exactly.
It's like a lineage, like family map, like.
And so I think the writers of the show are going, okay, this one died by fire because his brother killed him. This one died from childbirth. This one we think died, but actually he just escaped, just to add that little variety so that it's not dead, 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 and it gets boring after a while, you know?
Yeah. This
So
story
really
kind of needs to happen because, like, if you haven't paid attention to, like, what the show is leading to, we're just getting started. Like, this is like not it's coming. Like,
this
you know
is
what I mean?
not. This is after this episode. This next episode, no more time jumps.
Yeah.
This is it. Like, this is all leading towards the war of the Dance of Dragons, which is the major war that happens.
Yeah.
And that's what it's leading towards. And they wouldn't have done the show if it wasn't for that war. You know, it's basically going to be similar to the War of the 5 Kings. But it's with dragons, you know.
And it's all within the same house, relatively, right?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because they're all Targaryens in a sense, like dragons, like Valerians, Targaryens. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
Valerians, Targaryens.
Whether bastards or not, whether actually Targaryens or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is going to be that major part, but it's going to be fascinating. Jumping to the next episode, something I didn't like too much about it. The
lighting, right?
Ugh.
Okay, and there's people gaslighting other people like, what are you talking about? My TV, I saw it fine. Shut up. If it's this much of a problem that so many people are having this issue, not everyone's watching it too. I watched it from my computer and I had problems.
Yeah.
And then I watched half the other on my phone. I'm like, this is so dark. Like,
I didn't think it was, in terms of the darkness, I didn't have problem with the darkness. What I had problem with was it was clearly shot during the daytime.
Yeah.
And you could tell because
the shadows are really clear.
Yeah, you could tell it was really bad because Lauren even caught onto it. Like Lauren, she's getting smarter with this Game of Thrones stuff though.
Or just filmmaking in general. You can tell that this is not filmed at night.
Yeah, Lauren's like looking at the stuff and she's like, was that a slight? And I'm like, good, you're learning, Lauren. You're becoming more of like a Throny. I love it. You know, but she looked at it and she was like, what the hell is this lighting? Yeah, it's really bad. Like, I wasn't gonna bring it up, but it was really bad.
Whoever lights, like
Yeah.
whoever's handling the lighting in Game of Thrones is like what Christopher Nolan is to sound editing, where he's like, oh, I can't hear anything, I'm gonna boost it up like to 1,000. While this is the opposite. Oh, I can see it clearly, so I'm gonna turn the lights all the way
Yeah,
down.
exactly. I just thought it was so funny that when Rhaenyra came up to her son Jace and was like, "Go to bed," and Lauren was like, "It's 3 p.m. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you can't. I think is it the same day? Like, what is going on? Like-
Exactly. But that scene was really good, where the funeral scene, where
you can see Allison. If you go to that scene, Alice, Rhaenyra's looking at Daemon, and you can see Allison looking at Rhaenyra. She's like, tape it down,
like, "Don't
Rhaenyra.
you do
It's
it."
like, are you do it right here again? But it's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
fun. It's so memeable. It's like so hilarious.
It's so good.
He's like so fed up
Yeah.
with that
But
Rhaenyra. It's hilarious.
It's just everything I love about. Apparently, that was the first scene that they filmed.
yeah, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't want to show Viserys's like decrepit in this episode
Yeah.
for anybody like to leak it. So he was followed with like security on the island and stuff, which is
Nice.
crazy.
Like a real king.
Yeah, and Paddy Considine had an interview where he was like, it was so cool. It's the first time I ever had to be like secretive like this, you know. And he
I
was like,
think
"It's so sick."
I think he's like one of the few actors who is not with. He's like he gets along with the cast, but you can tell like the rest of the cast who are younger are like all vibing with each other
Oh,
and
yeah.
talking about regular stuff, and he just sits there in the interview. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
he's like actually Viserys in real life. He just
Oh,
sits
yeah.
there like, yeah.
I mean, there was this. Did you see the one where like they talked about Matt Smith and the Morbin time? meme
Yeah.
and stuff?
That's the one
And
I'm
he was
talking
like-
about.
And he was like, "Oh, that's nice."
He has no idea
I
what
was
morbid
like,
time
He's
is.
such a grandpa, dude. Yeah, I love it. But Paddy Considine, as we'll talk about later, he has become what I think one of the best performers we have seen in a live action Game of Thrones, maybe of any like live action fiction. He brings such a Shakespearean tragedy to the character that was
He
not
just
there in
wants
the books.
everyone to get along
Which-
and have a
but
good time.
That isn't there in the books. Like in the books, he's more like Robert. He just drinks. He drinks,
Literally,
poops.
someone
and,
drew a
has sex with
parallel
people.
between when the kids were arguing at the end of this episode, and then someone drew a parallel to Robert. Oh, right enough. She says one thing, he says
says
another.
another. Yeah,
Like,
well, it's-
what? I can't make anything of
That
this.
scene
Like,
was so reminiscent of the conflict between Arya and
like Cersei and Joffrey and all
and
that.
Joffrey in the second episode where Ned has to kill Sansa's direwolf, which is absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean it is like, and also that scene, it's the exact same as Robert. Robert doesn't give anybody justice. He doesn't choose one. Nobody feels satisfied, and that's probably the worst thing you can do as a king is make that everybody feel dissatisfied. But we'll get there. But what I really liked about the funeral scene was the sea snakes, or the Lord of the Tides, his brother. He was giving the eulogy, and he says, "The blood of the Valerians runs
I know what you're talking
strong,"
about, yeah.
and he was kind of sliding that. What I really like about that is Damon laughed, and which is really like, you're laughing at your wife's funeral, but he's laughing because he's like, wow, dude, seriously, you're doing petty politics at my wife's funeral.
Some people would
you
even
know?
say that he did it to draw attention away
Yeah.
from Rhaenyra and her
Yeah,
children.
it's crazy.
Yeah, like
It's crazy. It's
really
just
cool.
there's so much going on, and the fact that Viserys went up to Daemon and was like, "Hey, come to my court. Like, I need a Targaryen."
He's like, please, can we just be like brothers again?
Yeah.
Like, can we just be a family?
I think Daemon might be a little bit mad that he didn't contact him to be Hand of the King.
Again.
Yeah, like
For the second.
because in the first episode, he was like, 10 years you've been king, and not once have you asked me to be your hand. And so maybe he's a little bit miffed at him for that.
He can't even stay. He can't stay mad at anyone, not even Otto. Like in the end, because he just
Yeah.
asked him to come back, like
Yeah.
off screen. Like,
Yeah, definitely. And I love that little meeting with Otto where he was like, as fat as the leech grows, he always wants for another meal, and Otto's like, oh, okay, like, oh, like, look at this guy, but I love the hate between them is still so fiery and real, and Otto having to go to Aegon and be like, get up, and Aegon's like, huh, what is it?
he's just drunk. Like,
Yeah. But the biggest thing this episode is that probably Aemon, the second son of
Alicent?
Viserys and Alicent, has gotten like the biggest weapon of war
Yeah.
in the entire kingdom.
If a nuclear bomb could fly, like
and
breathe.
in the books it says that if a dragon lives beyond 100, a man cannot kill it. It has to be another dragon. So the fact that nothing can kill that thing, like, is huge. And the fact that this child now has this gigantic weapon of war and Otto realizes that is big. And I really wish that they talked a little bit more about it. We got a shot with Rhaenyra and Daemon kind of being like, who dat? You know,
I am
who's running it?
surprised
Yeah.
that they glossed during that fight between the kids that like that either he had no idea or just like didn't care enough to like all right, we kind of saw, they didn't really solve the problem, but like there's like Alicent slashes like Rhaenyra and they're all right, we're done. Like no, do you not know what just happened? Like you lost they had not you lost, you have a dragon. Like there was like clear exchange of power, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just huge. Like it's a huge advantage for like this one for Team Green. That's what they're calling it, the Greens and the Blacks, right?
That is their names in the books.
Yeah,
Yes.
Alicent's
The Greens and the
Alicent's is
Blacks.
team, is the is it team or house? I don't know what you call it. The Greens and the Blacks. That's what
It's
I'm
just
gonna
the
say
Greens and the Blacks.
So
yeah.
that sounds wrong. The Blacks.
No,
even
it's
though they're
fine.
clearly white.
If
like,
you don't think about it, too
no, I
much,
know,
you know.
but everyone within the context of the show, everyone knows what it means.
Yeah.
But Alicent's the Greens and Rhaenyra is the Blacks. Why is it the Blacks? Because Targaryens, that's what their color is.
Yeah, well, their color, their background of their color it's black and red with the red dragon and the black background. So that's just how it is, Like that's a good question. Why it's not red? Because I would
their
think
war,
it would be the reds.
because I think there's a difference between their house color and what their war banner color is.
Yeah.
Because he says, what's the color for their war banners for for Alicent's like
the
the High Towers?
yeah.
It's green. So I'm to assume there are two distinct colors between each house.
Well,
maybe
the High Towers is gold and green because their background is, maybe it's silver and green actually. I don't know, but their sigil is the Tower of Old Town, which is where the Maesters go to learn and all that stuff, and where the Ravens get all sent off, and we see it in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah,
and stuff.
cool.
Yeah, I love Old Town, and I really hope they show it in live action again because I love that place. I love the High Towers. These are probably the worst of the High Towers that we see, but they're still interesting,
Yeah.
But like the acting from Patty in that scene, dude, so good. When he has his sleeve, he's old and decrepit.
Did he lose his arm or did
He lost his arm? Yeah,
he just cut it off?
he cut it off because the disease would have came to his entire body.
Is it great? Is it grayskin?
No.
Grayscale?
He has I believe some people have said that he has a form of leukemia. I think that's what they said.
Oh.
Or was it diabetes or something? He has something like that. But I mean,
I would assume tetanus because
because
dude's
of
getting
his cutting.
something like that.
But it just, I really like the symbolism of that because in the books he doesn't get decrepit like this. But I like the symbolism of this one because it's like his hand is rotting like Otto was his hand, and it's corrupting him, and Otto kind of spurred this whole thing on,
Yeah.
But I love that scene. Like there's one line every time I watch it. Like I watched it with Lauren last night and I paused it and I went, that's acting. Patty Constantine, the goat.
It's when he's yelling that we're a family. Like, or something like that.
Yes. And I was like, I watched some of his new movies or some of his older movies, and he's mainly a comedic actor.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz, The World's End.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched those, they're hilarious. Just seeing him in.
Rhys Ifans is actually a pretty big comedic actor as well, but which is interesting because he's the lizard in Spider-Man, which is so funny.
That's where I mainly know him from.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's good.
But yeah, he was like his scene where he was like, "We are family," and he's like, "Now say your sorries, your apologies, and make goodwill to one another. Your father, your grandsire, your king demands it." And I was like, "Whoa!" It's like, "Oh God, it's so good," And that it's been a while since a Game of Thrones scene has made me like excited for acting. And I think the last time that happened was in season 6 when Sir Davos confronted Melisandre about Shireen getting burned.
Yeah.
And he was like, she was a little girl and I loved her, and he like berated at her and stuff like that. It was really good, And that really made me excited, and the fact that there were no acting moments that really made me excited
Following after.
after that
Yeah.
is pretty telling. But yeah, it was great. Aegon, have you seen the preview for the next episode?
They look older. Yeah.
Yeah, Aegon looks cool with the Aemon looks cool with the eye
Yeah.
patch.
It's weird.
you know?
Aegon looks older than Aemon does.
I think you mean Aemon looks older than Aegon?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if that's Aegon. I think that might be the fourth child.
By the way,
because they've had a baby off screen. They have 4 children, Alicent and.
I was gonna say, you were talking about how George R. R. Martin, like, the words are like all like together. The Targaryen names are like, oh, boop 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 boop. We're just like switching the front with the back, and then this name: Aemon, Aegon, Rhaenyra, Daenerys, like Viserys.
Good names.
It's
though,
like a bunch of like, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Like,
and I like how Jacaerys has a nickname like Chase. That's really good. It's really nice. Before we move on, how about that scene with the sea snake and the queen who never was, where he was like, what is the pursuit of this? What is the meaning of this life if not the pursuit of legacy? And she was like, that might be why you live yours, but I just want my family to be safe. Like, I was like, dang, that is good.
Yeah.
And
it sucks that she has to live with like the fact that, at least to what she knows, that her son died. Even though that's not true, but that's all, they're gonna have to live with that.
Yeah.
Like, for the rest of their lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens later on.
I mean, if they reveal it, that'd be kind of, I don't know what that would do to Rhaenyra and her family.
I think it's not said in the books what happens. I think the only thing would be Rhaenyra telling the 2 parents,
just to make them like, hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Or would even
because
be mad,
there are
like,
some alliances later on that happen that I'm like, if they suspect Daemon and Rhaenyra killed like him, I feel like that couldn't happen. Some stuff that happens later on, but we'll get there when we get there. The war lines have been drawn this episode.
If you didn't think they were drawn, they obviously showed it one side slowly and then one side the other. Like,
and it was like between like a fireplace and stuff, and they did a cool shot like that. Really cool. That scene where Alicent was about to stab her, and then Rhaenyra looked at the knife and saw like the fire within it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. The knife in the book doesn't have this big symbolism. That knife is not going to kill the Night King in the books.
Yeah, that was a different one, right?
That's the same knife that kills the Night. That
in the show, okay. In the show, it hints at that, but in the books, it's not.
In the books, it is the reason why the battle or the War of the Five Kings starts, because that's the dagger that Littlefinger uses. It's Tyrion's dagger at this point in the story. But Littlefinger steals it and gives it to the assassin who tries to kill Bran and cuts Catelyn. And that starts the conflict.
But the one in the show, those are 2 different knives. The one that Arya uses and Littlefinger's.
It's the same knife
in the show.
Yes, that knife is the same knife all the way through.
So regardless, so ignoring the show, in the books that's still the same knife. Like,
it's in the books that's still the same. But the books, nobody knows where the knife is. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So
in Fire and Blood, it's not even there. Like no mention of this blade. It doesn't do a Lord of the Rings thing where from my blood comes the prince that was promised. That doesn't happen, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the episode coming out tonight. And for those of you who have watched it, probably already seen it. So lucky you guys, or time travelers.
You guys to the future. Good job seeing it before us.
Yeah.
Darn.
Oh man. But either way, I'm super excited, and I can't wait for the following 2 episodes after that. And that'll be the end of season 1.
And then
another season.
And then 2 years until we get season 2.
That long?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're all adults now. That way the kids don't really have to
age,
so they can keep the same actors.
Yeah, we'll see. Yes, let's get into House of Dragon.
We don't mean to talk about. It's just we just like it so much. I mean,
House of the Dargan.
Dargan, Hinga Diga Dargan.
Here, I'll relate it to anime. House of the Dragon Balls. There you go. Booyah.
That
related.
sounds messed up.
No. Oh well, maybe in the context of this show it does.
House of the Dragon Balls.
House of the Dragon Balls.
That's where the eggs are
Hey
kept.
man, well it is in the lore of Game of Thrones. It is highly encouraged or pointed out that humans actually did the deed with actual dragons, and that's why when they say they have the blood of the dragon, they actually have the blood of the dragon.
They took a step too far, buddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, Valyria was an awful, evil witch sorcery place, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Is Valyria, was it an actual place or was it a continent or country?
Valyria was a city of old in the far east of places like Ashai and Pentos and all those places. Far
But we've
east.
seen where's Valyria now in the show? Is it a place or does it not exist anymore?
Valyria doesn't exist. Valyria got exploded in the Doom, which was Valyria took place next to like gigantic volcanoes, and like all of them blew up and killed most of the dragons. Because Valyria in Valyria, the Targaryens weren't even one of the major houses. They were a
But that's where
smaller
they
house.
came from, right?
That's where they came from. Them and the Valerians. That's where they came from. But Aegon the Conqueror, he left looking for a better life. Or they talk about the prophecy in this show. I don't know if that's what George meant in the books. But Aegon left, and then the Doom happened, and thus they had dragons and nobody else did, thus making Targaryens the biggest and largest house basically on the planet.
Interesting. You know about this stuff a lot more than I do.
But yeah, Valyria, it's interesting hearing Viserys talk so highly about Valyria, because Valyria was an awful, like, terrible slave empire with witches and like just an awful place.
I guess some people had it better than others, and he's like, back in the good old days, I was, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like he's talking about it like that because he's somebody who would have benefited from that system, you know.
So I guess jumping right into it in episode 8 is where we are, right?
Yes, this is the 8, and this one is called the Driftwood Throne. Yeah, is the name of the episode.
Or at least we start off immediately like there in the Driftwood Throne in Driftmark.
Yes.
It's the brother of Corlys.
Yes.
I don't know what the guy's name is, but
I think it's Vaemond Valerion.
Yeah, you're right. Where he's like claiming his own right to the Driftwood Throne, since like Corlys is he dying or is he dead? I'm pretty sure he's dying, right?
He is. They said he's dying. This is interesting. In the books, in this one, they say that he's injured, but in the books, he's dying just because he's an old dude at this point. Like he's an old dude at this point in the story.
Well, I guess the saying that they say black don't crack really shows, because clearly he doesn't seem that old.
Yeah, no, he doesn't seem that old.
While Viserys over here is like a corpse. Like,
Viserys is also like. There's some theories that Maester, I forgot the first Maester's name, that Maester was working with Otto to make him more sickly.
And like he was already had a bunch of stuff, like, you know, to begin with. It showed that he had some disease. Like,
well, yeah, and they think that he had a disease, like he had some kind of leprosy, I think they called it. And then they also said that he got the infections from being cut on the throne, which in the books, being cut on the Iron Throne is basically saying you're not worthy of it. So yeah, plenty of kings have been cut on the throne.
He's a great character.
Yes,
a very good man in terms of morality, in a sense. But he is an awful king. Awful king with making a lot of dumb decisions.
I don't think he's an awful leader, though. I think he's an actual okay leader. I just think that because he does make everyone. He tries to make to find the best for everyone.
But that's the fault. But like he can't. His
Mm-hmm.
problem is he doesn't want to upset anybody. And as a king, you gotta that is if you like, because I feel like stuff like the Triarchy could have been something settled with a firm hand,
Yes.
like a long time ago. If he had done like an absolute like
Yeah.
something with it.
But he just wants to, the dude just wants to play with his Lego set,
Yeah.
Like he just wants to hang out.
But I think objectively, you can say that
Yeah.
alone makes him a bad
I thought it
king.
was interesting that people in this episode were like, "Oh, I hated Viserys in the first episode," and I was like, "Why?" I was like,
He was. I mean, he was always like this, but people would just connect that with him, like, oh, you made his wife pump out a bunch of babies, and like, or try to have like,
but I feel like that's
every
just
king.
I feel like that's just the duty of
A woman back then.
Yeah, all
in
of
that
them.
world.
And unless you're a very special breed like Corlys, Corlys is actually like the only person in Westeros who seems to like talk to his wife about and like consult his wife on like these
Well,
matters.
she's a higher ranking than he is.
That is true. That
yeah.
is true. She is a princess, but I mean also
and a
like,
Targaryen.
it is
like,
still nice that he does it. You
Yeah.
know. But yes, this episode, I'm just going to say if Patty Considine doesn't win an Emmy, it completely. And I've said this. I don't think any award shows have any credibility to them anymore.
Yeah. But what?
I think not that they ever did.
What about Bob Odenkirk?
Oh yeah,
Better
Bob
Call Saul?
Odenkirk. He didn't. Better Call Saul didn't win anything.
No, but it has the last season still, right?
No, I don't.
Because
think
it came out this year.
Oh yeah, it might have. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it did. I just remember
'Cause, like,
seeing
right,
somewhere
it
that
starts-
Better Call Saul didn't win.
Well, for
anything.
season 5, right?
Season 5.
Because
yeah.
the Emmys were this year for last year.
Yeah, but I
Because
don't
they would
think,
not host it mid-year.
But Bob Odenkirk would get nominated for lead actor. I think Viserys would be nominated.
Viserys is a lead actor.
Viserys would be supporting.
But who's the lead actor male actor in the show?
It's Damon or
No,
it's,
he's not.
it's Rhaenys or Rhaenyra.
But
Yeah,
that's
it's,
lead
it's-
actress.
It's Damon. That is Rhaenyra. But the thing is that just because Rhaenyra is the lead actress, it doesn't mean he's not supporting.
But Patty Considine is the first name in the credits.
Sometimes he is, not all the time. Sometimes
I'm
he
calling
is.
cap. I'm
But-
pretty sure he's
But you
considered
also
lead
you
actor
also
in
have
this
to remember
entire
Game
show.
of Thrones is different than any other show, right? Because characters can die off. I don't think you can have a lead character who's not in these last 2 episodes, because he's not going to be. I also think like when Game of Thrones
Wasn't Game of Thrones? I mean, didn't Ned die in like the
yes,
second to last episode?
when Game of Thrones was in its heyday, the actors would only be nominated for supporting actor. Peter Dinklage only was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and that's the only person who won individual awards. The only people who were nominated for lead characters was Kit Harington in the season 8 and Daenerys in season 8, which they didn't have any chance of winning with the absolute dog water they were given.
Yeah.
You know,
I would just argue that in this one season, that Patty Considine was the leading male role in this first season, regardless of whether he's going to be.
No, you could argue.
I believe he's the leading male.
Yeah,
that's what I believe. Yeah.
Hey man, like an Emmy's an Emmy. Best supporting actor, best actor doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, Rhys Ifans, I would love to see him win like best minor character. You know, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah.
Because he's been great as well. But yes, this episode, man, it's some of the best television I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's a good
Yeah,
episode. Probably the best in the season
Yeah,
so far.
I cried like a little girl. I did.
I teared up, but I didn't think it had that much of an impact on Ben. I was like, oh really? I was like, oh my god,
dude, I cried. I wailed.
Jesus.
Like I had to stop, and I was like, oh, like when
You're like that
was,
meme, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that's this kind of
exactly.
stuff we like to see.
But
Like,
man, like seeing a decrepit old man, I never thought I could be so hyped.
it's like
seeing
there's like the meme seeing old leaders in power in real life. Boo! Old leaders in power in Game of Thrones, House of Dragon.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw that meme of like the guy who has the salute sign and then he's like screaming
Yeah.
and stuff. Like when he looks at Otto and he goes, "I will sit the throne today." I was like, "Oh my!" And Patty, he kills this episode, man. He's just so good.
Yeah.
And when his crown fell off and Damon picked it up, apparently that was improvised.
Yeah.
And of course we see all the memes of "you dropped this king," you know.
Literally
literally.
is the meme. Like that is literally what happened.
Yeah.
But such a great moment. But everything leading up to that was really was great too. Especially, but it was really sad seeing like Viserys in the bed. Like he's in absolute
Yeah.
pain.
If you watch it again, you can see like Damon doesn't even look at him because he can't stomach it. Like
Yeah.
he just can't.
He
It's
loves
really good.
he loves his brother.
Yes.
Like if that wasn't like confirmed already, like this cements it.
It's gonna be very interesting to see because Damon's entire goal as a character has been to get the love and respect from not just his family, but mostly from Viserys. You know,
Yeah.
like he wants his.
But
you
I mean, he has it in Rhaenyra now. He clearly cared.
Yes.
For her. Other than his brother, he cared about her in a in a weird way because they're
because it kind of groomed her. Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
No, I mean not really. I mean,
watch that first episode again when he put like that necklace on her and
but
stuff.
that was already lingering stuff there. And like,
but isn't she like 14 and he was like 25 or something?
yeah, but she clearly wanted more than he did. Like,
I
don't know. I don't know. But I mean, but he either way, he clearly cared about her, other than her brother.
Yes.
So he's gonna be, and he clearly cares about the situation and her family,
Yeah.
about the strong kids. He cares about them as well, in
Yeah.
his foot, whether he believes because everyone knows they're strong kids, but even then he's like, don't mess with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's clearly there, and I really like that about him. So I feel like the love will still be there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he defended them basically in the. And he was kind of acting like their father, where he was like in that.
Yeah, he's like,
in
I
that
got
dinner
this.
scene. Yeah.
Oh, I don't want. We'll get there then because I really like that. I really like that scene. But everything leading up to that, clearly things have changed. The queen is taken position like in the small council, and then Otto the Hand takes the throne instead of the king. So they're clearly the heads of the entire kingdom right now, and it's a bit sus because obviously Viserys is like dying, but it's not a pretty picture.
But they're keeping him alive,
Yeah.
so that they can hold power for as long.
Yeah,
as
that's
they
what
can.
that's what I said. People are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they're killing him." I'm like, maybe they got him to this point, but they're
Yeah.
definitely he's the only thing that's keeping them relevant.
I think that's what they did was they made him this sick.
Incompetent enough to
Yeah.
not rule, but like just alive,
Yeah.
so where she can hold the power
Yeah.
of queen.
Because
you know.
even like when Viserys was healthy, he was still a pushover king, but we still saw that scene where he put his foot down and he was like, see, when he's older, he's like, no more, like, but like when he was young in that first episode and he was like, my wife and son are dead. And he was like, I will not hear it, and I think it's better for these people if they have a weak, sickly king, kind of a puppet king, for them to use. Yeah, it's just absolutely glorious. Like, Edgar, do you want to talk real quick? You're our soundtrack guy. You want to talk a little bit about how good the soundtrack was when Patty entered in that scene?
Yeah, it was good. I'm like, this might be a hot take, but I don't really like Ramin Djawadi's
What?
score. Other than the opening
Whoa.
and then a few moments, I just find his scores to be a bit generic and not moving.
That is a very hot take. I've never heard anybody say that.
Iconic, yes, but he doesn't. I don't know. As a score, as in terms of score for this entire show, it's been okay, and there's been just reiterations of the Targaryen theme, like the.
Rhaenyra's theme is really good. The
that one,
good.
yeah.
And then the drift mark theme or the Valerian theme.
I don't know. That one.
the boom 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 boom. I would have.
Isn't
to
that
show
just
it to you.
that's just like the Targaryen thing, kind of, but more pompous?
Yes, but it's more like it has more like drums.
Because it's like
to
the
it,
build up,
'cause
boom,
it's-
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
boom, boom.
but what I really like about that Patty entrance scene is it's the same theme from the first episode of Game of Thrones, but it's more valiant. The King returns, or the King's arrival, when he arrives on Winterfell.
Bum, 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 bum,
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
bum, bum,
yeah.
bum, bum, bum. See,
That's a really good.
I like
soundtrack,
the original. I just didn't pay attention to a lot of the scores in the following seasons of Game of Thrones, but I really like the beginning stuff, especially in the beginning stuff for House of Dragon. In the scene where we see like the very very beginning, where it shows like the old king naming Viserys a king. Jacaerys. Yeah. In that scene, the score for that was really good. I really like it. I don't know what it's called. I'm pretty sure it was like the first track for it. But that was really good. But other than that, nothing's really stood out to me. The music at the dining room was pretty endearing.
I think it is really hard. That was really nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it slowly it sounds it's very it has a melody that's very nice and like
Yeah.
tranquil and peaceful, and then it slows down into like a very sad, and it's a bit on the nose, but it works still because it
Yeah.
makes you feel like this
Yeah.
is, even though it's happy, we know that it's not true because it's not gonna
I think is his name Jawadi? I think
Ramin Djawadi.
Jawadi or something like that.
Ramin is his
Just
first
ramen,
name.
yeah.
Not ramen, but
Ramin.
Ramin.
Ramin, yeah. I think Ramin has done a absolutely brilliant job,
Jawadi.
especially since
There you go.
Jawadi. I think he's done an absolutely brilliant job, especially since there's not a lot of houses in this part of the story yet. It's really just the Hightowers, the Targaryens, and the Valerians, and kind of how strong. But like in Game of Thrones, like that Lannister theme was so good, like that Stark theme was so good, and you could use that and make different variations of it.
The Stark theme is probably my favorite theme of all Game of Thrones.
Oh, isn't it
It's
really
always
good?
it's so
Yeah.
moving, and no matter what happy moment it is, it always sounds tragic.
And even if the writing is really bad, it still sounds, like at least the soundtrack is there.
Oh, he did Pacific Rim. That might be my favorite score from, because the Pacific Rim theme is so
Yeah,
awesome.
I was just- I was surprised. I was like, I thought
Yeah.
But I
Normally,
get you.
normally it doesn't move me much, but there are really good moments. I mean, I don't hate the score, but there are a lot of good moments. But specific compared to Game of Thrones and like House of Dragon, nothing's hit me like Game of Thrones has yet. Again, they're borrowing a lot of themes, but it's only one season, so I can't really have a strong footing on that. But it's not awful. But if someone were to say that they really like the score, I don't blame him because he's still a pro at what he does.
Amont. He's cool.
My
isn't
favorite. He's my favorite. My new favorite now.
Your new favorite.
Just because he has nothing but a goal in mind,
Yeah.
and that is to declare war when he has a
Fire
chance.
and blood.
He's
baby.
like the dragon's not going to be the only thing that people fear me. It's going to be
Yeah.
he is an intense fighter. His stare, his actor, he says so much in silence. Like he only has one eye.
You know
and
the
he uses
dude's 20. That dude is 20 years old.
He looks like 50, but like
he
in a
looks
good
like
way.
10 years older than we are. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess he might be younger in actual age as an actor than the guy who's
Yeah.
playing Aegon, but
Yeah, I think
Aegon
so.
just looks younger
Yeah.
than Aemon does. But Aemon is clearly just working on it, and he's working
Yeah.
out, he's training, like his life depends on it.
I wonder if maybe like since the bond between the Targaryens and their dragons are so strong, maybe writing Vhagar made him bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
Faster. Maybe that.
It's
maybe
like
that's something.
Balon is like, man, we made the right choice with this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He clearly wants to go out in all glory.
Yeah.
But I really, if we're just going to the dinner scene, or I guess we'll just be jumping everywhere. But the dinner
Yeah.
scene,
Oh, you mean the?
yeah.
God, that was so good, wasn't it?
I saw the pig and I saw once the strong. Why did you laugh, man? You've
Yeah.
seen this guy fight. Why would you smirk
Yeah.
at all? And when he stands up, he's like to the strong, and then he shoves him. And
might be the best like that is just like that's George R. R. Martin writing at its finest.
Yeah.
Like doesn't that look it looks like something that would be in the book. Like these valiant, these courageous, these strong boys.
I
So
know they're still
good.
kids, but you're how old? Why do you still show your Why do you show your hand whenever someone calls you that?
Yeah.
You're just adding fuel to the fire.
Exactly.
Literally, your one job is to like take the hit, but every time you get mad is like
Yeah.
another arrow in
And
their
like
arsenal.
that one eye, like he like opens
He's-
it wide.
he
and
stares.
So
he-
scary.
and like my favorite moment is
Yeah.
like when like Daemon stands up and like kind of puts him away, and then he turns back and is like, "You think you're the new guy in town? You think you're hot shit?
Yeah,
you
and
think
he's
you
like-
think you're so cool? I was
Yeah.
the rogue prince. You're
Which is-
not." And then like you
yeah.
could tell there's I don't know
Yeah.
what happens in the books, what battles will be happening, but I hope and I get the feeling that their fight. Oh man, because like they're two heads, like spearheads of the family, and I really can't wait to see them fight. It's gonna be great. And Damon's like response to that, they're both great, and especially the scene where Damon chops off that guy's one heads, and then
Oh, yeah,
and then
Vaemond.
and then
Yeah.
Aemon is like, I like that.
Yeah.
he just
was
looks
like,
at him.
He was
he's
like, I dig that.
I
Yeah.
dig that.
But, like,
I can vibe with
yeah,
that.
his reaction of let him keep his tongue, that was really awesome. Like, I really liked that.
That
But
entire scene was
Yeah.
fantastic.
oh yeah, that whole like there are some scenes in here that is like that might be the best Game of Thrones.
Vayman ain't wrong though, bro.
Oh
Like,
no,
'cause-
he's not. And
like-
and I do feel sympathy for him, but also like I mean the sympathy kind of goes away when he calls Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the writers kind of went for.
Yeah.
You know.
Is it how do we make him? How do we make him on the bad guy side now? Like
Yeah, yeah.
Because he is right.
But I don't know, like especially some of the stuff from Alicent this episode kind of made me feel for her a little bit more. Like, God, her kids are just the worst.
No, yeah, man.
like
they're
Aegon's a
yeah.
Aemon's an absolute psychopath, And I love
Yeah.
that scene where he's fighting Crispy Creme.
Some
And
yeah, everyone's like, he still looks
Yeah.
Can't we just kill him? I'm like, hey guys, I
Yeah.
get it. He's on the Team Green, but I really like him.
Yeah.
I still like him. He looks great.
And
like,
it just shows that Crispy Cole is like he's more into like fighting in the tournaments and like being a real knight. And Aemon's like, oh, I don't care about tournaments. He's like, nephews, you want to fight? Come over here. I'll fight you. Did you see how like intense their training was? He's holding a morning
How did
star
they-
and swinging it at him. Like if that hits him, he's dead.
yeah, yeah, but a lot of great things. But the dinner scene really showed someone. I mean, this is not my own original idea, but someone clearly said beautifully that even in a moment like that, you can tell that the princesses, the princess and the queen, Rhaenyra and Alicent, you can tell, especially after their exhaustion after all this, that they want to put it to bed. Just stop.
They were moved by Viserys's words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they want to stop. And even when it seems like happy, it's not. They've taken it way too far towards out of their hands. That it's clearly
Yeah.
their kids now that are the
Yeah.
ones like inciting this.
Yeah, well, they have been pushing each other towards violence for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think it was like, I actually thought it was really nice that I think Otto was like, you know what, whatever, like it's fine.
Yeah.
Like I really like that scene where like Otto was like applauding
Yeah,
them
he's
dancing.
He's having
and stuff.
fun. Yeah.
I was like, man, that is really,
Can we
really
just stay like this
nice.
forever, please? Like,
Exactly, and it just makes you be like, okay, this is the last time we're getting this,
and
what I-
Viserys is probably gonna die thinking that it.
Yeah,
I
of
mean, he
course.
does, but like
Yeah.
we probably all saw, like, yeah, he's gonna die because he's
Yeah.
gonna think that this is how it ends for them. That he solved it.
Listen to this, Edgar. The first season of Game of Thrones, the first episode starts with the death of an Aaron. The hand of the king was an Aaron, and he was, I forgot his full name.
Aaron, they're from the.
He's
the
from
Vale?
the Vale. Yes, he was the leader of the Vale.
John Aaron.
John Aaron, yes, the death of John Aaron. This series started off with the death of an Aaron. Emma, his wife, was an Aaron. And then in episode 8, the death of King Robert happened. And in this episode 8, the death of King Viserys happened.
Yeah, if anyone can't tell, if you can't tell that the turning point has happened,
Yeah.
that this isn't the turning point, you're blind.
Yeah.
Because it has been building up, and like I said, Viserys has been the only thing keeping the High Towers relevant in power. And if any chance they have to declare it and to step in and say,
Yes.
we're keeping it, this is the moment.
Yeah.
This is when it happens. And if you didn't look at the preview, stuff is going to be happening.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming, and I'm really, really, really excited to see what
Yeah.
happens. Like it's all come to like a clashing conclusion here.
Yeah.
I mean, we still got 2 more episodes following after that, which is great, but it
Yeah.
starts now.
It looks like the next episode's going to be all about King's Landing
Yeah.
and
I
what's
don't-
going on
I
over
think
there.
it's safe to say that we won't be getting any major time jumps moving forward.
No,
right?
no, no. This is it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
I-
These actors who are here, they are the actors forever.
Great.
Um,
It was confirmed by George R. R. Martin that House of the Dragon will require 4 seasons, 10
Yes.
episodes each to complete the series.
Yes.
So great. I'm glad because I didn't know the context of I'm like, one book for like 2 more, for like a few more seasons. Why? But then I found out, it's like a history book, and it tells out the Dance of Dragons, like all of it, the history of the Targaryens. So like it makes sense. I'm glad there is a clear conclusion and like what's gonna be happening. So
Yeah.
now I'm officially now excited
Yeah.
that we'll be getting an entire depth show of this.
Episode 10 is going to be really good, Edgar. Something's going to happen at
Does it have the name for the
No,
show?
I don't think so. But something's going to happen at Storm's End on episode 10, and I'm really, really excited for you to see it. and talk
I
about
have
it.
the title names. You
Yeah,
wanna
go
see it?
ahead.
Okay, so okay, there's only 2 more episodes left,
Yes.
including the next one coming.
Yes.
This episode 8 was called The Lord of the Tides. That was the name.
Yes.
Yeah. And the next episode is called The Green Council. That is the one that's coming up.
Of course.
Or
I
in recording, if you're listening to this now, it already happened. The last episode, episode 10, is called The Black Queen.
Yep.
So I like that. The Green Council, the Black
The
Queen.
Black Queen.
I really
nice, right?
Really good stuff. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to that. Written by the same guy who wrote the first episode. So
Yes,
if
very
you
nice.
missed him out, if you missed that guy, then he's coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be really good. I can't wait for that episode. But yeah, going back onto this episode, just the ending of it, I think that it was really, really. Before we move on, there is something that, and I want to hear what you think about this, since I know what happens and I can't say what it is. So we've talked about, Aegon's sister, his sister wife. Now,
Yeah, I found out. I was like, wait, they what? And like,
yeah, they.
by the way,
married.
as much as a twerp and like absolute psychopath monster that Aegon is, his
Yeah.
actor is really great.
Yeah,
Especially his
he-
little banter with like his face. Like,
Yeah, that's really good.
he's a really great actor. It's like awful character,
Yeah.
but great actor.
He also made me feel for him a little bit, where he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's never enough for you and Dad,"
Yeah,
It's
obviously we
sad.
can't blame everything on just him. Like, there's a clear raising of driving. You have to be this, you have to be that, but not care about
Mhm.
him as a kid.
Yeah.
Kind of like Grisha is with Zeke, like driving,
Yeah.
putting the ideas on your child, but not actually caring and raising your child.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. Completely. But his sister wife, she says something. We know in the past she said something. She said some things that are very mystical. Like in episode, I think it was 6, she says if he wants a dragon, he'll have to lose an eye, or he'll have to close an eye. So
oh,
thus-
is she an oracle or sorts?
a lot of people think she's a green seer, which is what you remember Jojen Reed, people who can see the future, or get a glimpse of the future. And George R. R. Martin, he makes it very tragical when people are green seers, because
was
like,
Aegon? Would you classify Aegon as that, since he clearly saw the biggest plot of the entire Westeros?
Yeah, there are a lot of the Targaryens are known to have these prophetic dreams, and most of the green seers come from the Fist of the First Men, and most of those people are the Starks are from the north. But a lot of people think that they are a different version type of green seers. But a lot of people think that she's able to view these future things. So she says things in this like, he'll have to close an eye. And then in the episode after that, of course, that happens to Aemond. And also in that episode, she says black thread and green thread weaving together to dance as one, which is, of course, saying
The green and
thread of
blacks.
black, thread of green, they're
Yeah.
dancing together. And in this episode, she says, beware the beast under the boards. And she says that kind of in passing when she's drunk. Because in this one, she seems like she's an actual human being,
Yeah.
Like she can actually speak. And she has a little bit of a headache, and she goes, beware the beast under the boards. What do you think that means?
Beware the beast under the boards.
Yeah.
Maybe it has something to do with the house or something like that, or maybe it
Mm.
means something literal, something under the Red Keep under the castle.
Yeah, we have seen rats walk around the castle, maybe. I don't know
A
if rats
plague
could be...
coming, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
There is... I can't tell you this because I don't think it's going to be talked about in House of Dragon. There is a plague coming after the Dance of the Dragons, but I can't...
That's
I can't
probably
talk
too
about-
far.
Yeah.
It has to be something relevant within the show. Beast under the boards. Either it could be someone or something that
Maybe
could be dangerous,
Maybe Laris, maybe.
or literally just Aemond. He is literally a beast under the board. He's literally a beast and ready
Yeah.
to be unleashed.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. But I didn't know she's prophetic. I didn't know she was making these calls, which might be something
Yeah.
obvious to you, but now something I made aware of. I'll be going back and
Yeah.
listening to what she says, and I'll be looking forward, like pay attention to her character, make sure.
Yeah, definitely read that or watch that scene where she says, if he wants a dragon, he'll
Yeah.
have to close an eye.
This might be
Really
a dumb question, but
Yeah.
this entire show is making me realize how in depth and how large this world and world building and lore is.
And you're not... it's going to get
Who-
even more big.
I think J.R.R. Tolkien is like the master at that, and some would say the definitive like person of that. But would
Mhm.
you say how close, or would you say that George R. R. Martin is
Very close.
better, or just very close? Yeah.
Very close. If he finishes A Song of Ice and Fire, maybe on the same level. If it's finished, he'll never be there. He'll never. It's because he has made such a, all of these houses Tolkien did with the elves, the men, the dwarves, and the Silmarillion, right? But in this, there's just so much political intrigue, and the characters.
It feels more realistic in a sense because like it feels like drama. Like,
The characters have actual the characters all have individual goals, whereas in Lord of the Rings, it is more on the fantastical side of it, and that's not to its
It
detriment.
feels more like
know?
biblical rather than history and Shakespeare.
And I mean, Tolkien was a religious man.
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin, I don't think is.
No.
But
to add to that, whether he'll finish, a recent quote was taken from him. He must have said this recently, whether an interview or not, but it's been trending all over the place. He said, but right now, Ryan Condal, the head runner of the show, focuses on House of the Dragon Season 2, and mine is on The Winds of Winter. So probably we'll be getting the book soon within the time that Season 2 premieres or is finished wrapping up. That's
I think
good
no
news.
matter what, we will get a form of Winds of Winter, whether it is a draft, whether it is, what I'm worried about is A Dream of Spring. I don't know if we'll ever get that.
Is that supposed to be the last one?
That's the final book. Yeah, A Dream of Spring.
Well, he said Season 2. Why that either way, I feel like it's coming because he said his focus Season 2. Whenever that comes out, mine is Winds of Winter. I don't know. I have high hopes.
Edgar, I've been saying this since 2011, dog. Like
He said, but like he literally
Edgar,
said, like
this book has been in the writing since 2011.
Winter's coming, Ben. I can feel it coming.
I thought this exact same thing in 2019. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be next year.
I don't know. I'm just now joining this boat, so maybe it'll actually happen now. But who knows? A lot of great things in this episode. And I really can't wait for more.
Yeah. Just real quick, ending beautiful. Patty, wonderful. Like
yeah,
when he
it's
says,
died.
My love.
He saw his wife.
I thought it was of course.
His ex.
I thought it was so good when he was like, no more. Like I was like, man, dude, like this has probably happened many times to people like on their deathbed, But also, I thought it was also interesting that he talked about Aegon's prophecy, which is about the White Walkers.
Oh man,
with half of his face.
He almost solved it. If there was any point of like solving this issue, we almost had it, and he just accidentally ruins it by telling this prophecy with Alicent confusing it for her own son and her own way of saying that I need to claim the throne.
I don't know if Viserys is. I think Alicent just heard what she wanted to hear, and I think she just heard.
But it's
Aegon.
so specific because she doesn't know that because
But why would he change at the last second? She is hearing what she wants to hear, like that.
But he is saying it.
But
he clearly is saying it as if Rhaenyra is right there. Because they were because all this time while he has been backing Rhaenyra, he has been clearly on her side. It's like it's you.
Yeah.
Like, because he only told her that prophecy, not Alicent.
Yes.
So, she might be like hearing what she wants to hear, but it is to her, it's like, oh, my son is Aegon. She has no idea who she doesn't know about Aegon the Conqueror in the prophecy. So she clearly is taking it like it's him. Like all this conflict, I choose you. Like you're the hope.
I still think that she took a gigantic leap.
But it is a coincidence. Come on, she added through her ears, through her eyes. What else could that mean?
I still think that it's that she is still just using this as her gain.
What else could she What else could she reference it to though?
Well, I think that
literally nothing because she doesn't know anything about
Viserys doesn't
this.
tell her. Viserys has told her almost his entire life, Rhaenyra will be queen. He does not say in that moment, I want Aegon to be king. Like, he does not say that. He says Aegon is, like, she says, you're the one, Aegon, and his dream, the prince that was promised. And she goes, oh, I understand. I
Because
get you.
my son is named
No,
Aegon, a prince.
no.
Come on, you
But-
can't.
But there's
it's not out
also
of thin
but
air,
there's
like-
also Aegon, Rhaenyra's son.
But Rhaenyra does. But Alicent doesn't know that. She doesn't know what the name of that kid is. She's never met him.
Yes. But dude, there's no.
She's never met him. She doesn't know who that
I understand.
Aegon is.
I understand that that Alicent. They're trying to make Alicent seem like that, but this is still a jump, especially since Viserys all of his life said Rhaenyra would be king. Why would he change it? On
I don't know.
his
He's
deathbed?
dying. Like it's
There's
his
no
final
way.
words. Like
There's no way. There's
I don't
no
know.
way.
I mean,
But yeah, I think
take
I
it
think
as
that,
you will. But
I
yeah.
think that ending was really really good.
Yeah.
With his my love at the end, and I don't think Game of Thrones has done like a silent credit roll like that since Jon Snow died. In
rip
season
spoilers
5.
forever. who's
Oh.
just started on Game of
Well,
Thrones. like,
get screwed, I guess. Sorry.
yeah, that's your fault.
Yeah.
like, but yeah, we'll hear about. We'll be talking about the next
Yeah.
episodes to come, and we're really excited about that. Heart to the hinga-dinga-dinga.
Hearts to the dingin'.
So the king is dead.
The
Unfortunately,
king is dead.
The king is dead.
Viserys, the peaceful, is gone. What did he say?
You mean like?
What?
Yeah, like,
I
all the
do
way in the back,
appreciate
like-
though that I feel like George Martin or somebody went. I hate it in TV shows where like somebody's talking to a large crowd and goes, and somebody's like, what the?
I think
there's
it
no
literally.
way,
there's
you
a
know?
joke like that in Kung Fu Panda 2. Prepare to feel the wrath.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, what?
What? Yeah, exactly.
he's like so far away. Like,
Yeah, it's great. I love that. But in this, it felt like Rhys Ifans really brought that theatrical.
but
Yeah,
like,
exactly. He really brought that and I mean, I love Rhys Ifans, but you know,
Yeah, he's great.
I felt like it was a really really good, you know, really good. I feel like at least 50% of the audience would have been able to hear him, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
yeah, but the king is dead and the chess pieces are not moving like really
Yeah.
fast. And
Good shot of the Iron Throne at the beginning there with like the dark lighting and stuff.
Yeah. I thought that blonde kid was like another son of Viserys. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like,
I thought it was like I thought what they were gonna do was it was like a flashback of Viserys as a kid or something.
I thought that too. Yeah,
Like I thought it was just gonna be him like being happy and stuff, and it was gonna like show him like walking up to him dead or something. I thought they were gonna do something weird
Yeah.
with it, but no, he was just going up to Talia and being like, "King dead," you know.
yeah.
So yeah, and that's really sad, and this really shows. This was a tense episode. This was also an episode where everything that happened in it didn't happen in the books, or they happened in different ways. So Lord Beesbury died, and I actually kind of wish that they kept how he died in the books. Crispy Creme throws him out of a window.
Throws him for what reason?
Oh, because the same reason.
The same reason?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
because he's like, this is treason, you know, like he's known Viserys as long as any of you, and Crispy Creme grabs him and throws him out of the window, and
Yeah, for people who don't know, when he says Krispy Kreme, it's Kristen Cole. I feel like we said that so many times. Like, wait,
Yeah.
who are they talking
Crispin
about?
Kyle, yeah,
No,
indeed, but yeah, so
yeah, he kills. He just they're in the
he
green.
impales him with his ball, bro.
Were those balls always there? I was like, what?
Yeah,
what,
dude,
what are
those balls have been there the entire show.
Oh,
They
I never
are-
noticed them.
They're like I think there's just supposed to be like a device of like clocking in, you know, kind of thing.
Let me just clock in for the day.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
yeah, the Green Council like scene, really good. And then like the tone set in like we're gonna do something, like we're gonna make our move now. Is like when he
Mhm.
says, like, should we move the body? And it's like those stores stays closed until we finished our discussion.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, what the heck?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're
and
just gonna straight up usurp like the throne. And all
yeah,
that.
and I mean that's what they've been doing. Well,
Yeah, they're
Viserys
behind
has been-
Allison's
yeah,
back too. Like,
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean like, yeah, those guys are douchebags.
yeah.
That the Lannister who is there, Thailand, I think his name is, or I forgot which one is Thailand. I know one of them is Thailand
Yeah,
because
they're both twins, so they look similar. Like,
yeah, so they're twins, but he is like when we first see him, he's kind of just wearing, you know, base Lannister armor, and he kind of seems like he's hardworking and all that stuff. But now in this episode, he's wearing all these jewels, and he's kind of acting more Lannister-like. You know, he's kind of a pompous kind of, why did Dorne invade? You know, he's kind of acting like that,
Yeah.
and it kind of makes me think, oh, okay, so as he's gotten more power, he's become more like his brother, his pious, his just absolutely insufferable Lannister style.
The
you know?
usual, yeah.
Yeah. So this guy's name, who's right next to Alicent Hightower, he's this dude. He's the dude who said, "We don't want to sully you with these secrets, Queen." You know.
Yeah.
Who kind of has like the curly hair. His name is so interesting. He has a name called Ironrod. He's Jasper Wild, and of course the Wilds are. I believe that they own Case. Maybe they don't, but I know that they own somewhere in the Crownlands or the Westerlands, and he is called Ironrod because he's so strict. However, in the books, the Jester, Mushroom, says he's called Ironrod because of his stiff and
How would he know that?
he had 4 wives, right, and 29 children. He killed 3 of his wives because he had so many children.
If you thought Viserys was bad for making his wife have too many kids or try to have too many kids,
this guy's the worst.
Yeah,
And
bro.
it doesn't. It's not even counting all of his bastards that he has. So he has so many people.
Yeah.
Like I hate this dude just from the context that I know in the books.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, he's crazy. And it was insane. What'd you think about Harold Westerling? His stance against Krispy Kreme and
Oh, the guy who died?
no, that's Lord Beesbury. Harold Westerling, he was the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. He said, "Put down your sword, Sir Criston." He played Dwalin in The Hobbit.
Oh, yeah.
And he pulled off his white cloak and stuff. Awesome kind of Barristan Selmy moment there.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Well, I think this guy just like, I straight up quit. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Well, Barristan Selmy is like, yeah, you're going to be let go. No. I'm leaving. Like, you
Well,
know, because they were like
Barristan-
mid-firing him.
Yeah.
They were like basically.
Yeah, well, they were like, yeah, you're going to get out of there. And I loved Barristan. The way the show did him was absolutely so dirty.
Oh, during the Sons of the Harpy.
He's still alive in the books.
Oh.
And he's such a cool character. And I love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in season 1 is where they were like, yeah, you can retire in this nice little castle. And he was like, a castle to die in and people to bury me. I could carve any of you like a cake. Even at this moment, I was like, God, it's so good. But yeah, he had that moment at Harold Westerling. And I think that also puts into play because he protected Rhaenyra.
Surprised Kristen. Obviously, it's because of Alicent, but like normally Kristen would be like fired or something, or like punished in a sense. He's killed 2 people in front of witnesses without any consequence. So you just get away with stuff as usual.
But I mean, I guess you could always just make the excuse that, they were a danger to the crown. Which they could.
Yeah,
be.
he was he was outnumbered in a room that was like about to move forward by installing a new king, and he was protesting.
And Otto, like, he kills people this episode. Like, he goes, let the king's justice take him. And I'm like, what king? Like, no, your justice. There's no king right now.
At least not yet.
You know?
Like,
exactly.
you know?
Like, there is no king. Like he just killed Casper. I don't know what his name was.
There was the guy who tried to leave.
The bald dude, who was
and I would
friendly to
assume the one that they escorted. No, they just put him in the dungeon, right? The ones that just like didn't want to straight up at first. They just took him to the dungeon.
I don't know.
They might have just killed him.
They might have just killed him. I think.
Yeah.
Which I mean, which would make sense. But I mean, like this is. I don't know. I don't know about this, Otto. This is bad. This is to the sense, if you don't kill all of them, then their brothers or their nephews or their sons are going to come after you. And this is how you make enemies. This is why, in the long run, the Red Wedding was a bad idea. Yeah. Like, it was, like, overall, like, Tywin thought he was just like, okay, we're going to kill all of them, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you've made an enemy of the entire North, you know?
I will put a note on that in a second when we move forward. But
okay.
Yeah, that is a good point to make, that, you know, killing people have consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a real struggle between the Hand and the Queen,
Yeah.
Otto and Alicent. Like, Aegon's gone. That's funny. Aegon's not there, and
Aegon.
I noticed like things like it's like when Otto is like go find them, take off your cloaks. I'm like, oh yeah, as
Yeah,
usual, of course,
with
and bring them to me only. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what
cool,
the
cool characters, right? Eric and Arik.
yeah, more twins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
if
There's a
you're
lot
not
of twins
confused
in
enough
this
already.
episode,
Yeah.
There's a lot of twins in this series. Yeah.
Yeah, they go off to find them while Alicent sends Kristen and Aemond volunteers to help as well find them. And I really like the dialogue that goes on between the two. Like all the while short, he's like they talk about like yeah, we have to struggle and fight for like our positions and power and what to. I have a dragon. I've worked in like and blah 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 blah. And he is the king. He's like
Yeah.
and he basically says like it's basically saying that he wants to be king. He's like, why are we rescuing him? I mean, he wants to go rescue him. But he's like, why are we? You know what I mean? Isn't this dumb?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we doing this? But they end up finding him. Before they find him, what do you think of that chick with the white worm, the one who had Aegon,
Oh, the white
one-
worm? You mean
the French chick, the French action chick?
she was with Daemon.
Yeah,
earlier, yeah.
yeah.
Mazaria, I think is her name. She,
What I really I was like, what's the point of this?
yeah,
I was
she has a big part in the books.
Oh, she does. Because I was
yeah.
like, this feels like filler. If this isn't all filler enough already.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like-
I mean, it kind of was, but it was interesting filler. Like, I like the internal infighting, between these two.
Yeah, she says, "I'll give you him if you promise that all these fights
Yeah.
between children and child slaves stops." You know?
What I really love is how dark the series is getting. Whereas in the Game of Thrones show, it never really got to that fantasy because Dan and Dave, they've stated before that they were embarrassed to make fantasy, so they tried to make Game of Thrones more, kind of like a modern day drama.
a bunch of chumps. Look at that gun.
And so now we see really, really, like, in the books, there's kaiju monsters. The gods are like awful. There are underwater creatures. There are green seer jesters who are crazy. It's really dark. The books are really dark. And in this, we see a children fight pit.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, oh my god, this is the most Westeros thing I think I've
I
ever
thought
seen.
the kids were gonna fight like some
It's like
pig or some.
Pokemon.
Right? I thought they were gonna be fighting some animal.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, each other. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Don't you also think it's interesting how Aegon, he's a monster, right?
Yeah.
He's such a monster that kind of towards the episode,
He's not a good person,
Yeah. He's the worst person.
Yeah.
Right? He goes to these child fight rings and he makes bastards there and he watches these children fight and he bets on them and he keeps his wife and handmaidens, and he does all these awful things, but we never actually see him do it.
Yeah.
And I think that plays really well to his character because we have those people who we've met in real life who you're like, oh, he seems like a nice guy, and somebody comes up to you and goes, no, he's done this and this and this, or she's done this and this and this, and you're like, oh, and you're like, uh-oh, but you don't ever see it.
Yeah, even when the girl said, even with the girl who was like crying and like hysterical because of what Aegon did to her, we don't even see that scene.
Yeah,
as brutal as we don't want it to be, we don't want to see that scene, but it's still like is a subtle, not a subtle way, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not showing you, but it's just like, like one scene you hear the things he does and then you see him. And if you saw him alone, you'd be like, wow, this guy's kind of misunderstood.
Yeah, exactly. And he's
but
relatable.
But we know all the things that he is and what he does, So what makes him horrible?
And it's so bad that it kind of makes you be like, yeah, maybe Aemon should be king.
Yeah.
Like maybe this one-eyed, psychopath.
So far, he hasn't done anything completely wrong, technically. Horribly.
That is true. He hasn't done anything horrible.
Yeah.
But just wait.
We'll
wait a
figure.
couple
We'll wait. He wants to be Daemon for one.
Yeah,
for Daemon
of
for
course,
one thing.
of
So
course,
we know
which
how
is
that goes.
already dangerous.
Yeah, we'll know how that goes.
So yeah, I mean, not a lot happens.
Aegon not wanting to.
That,
Aegon not wanting to be king was like real interesting. I mean, all he wants is like his mother's, just their parents' love, essentially, from what we see, like in
He
which is
kind of just wants to be
normal.
noticed, you know? Yeah.
It's the classic rich people don't want to be rich and poor people want to be, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I don't want power, I just want blank and blank, and like, you know what I mean?
And it was really it was
And
really
Amon was
crazy.
like,
Yeah.
I have the perfect chance, like to just let you go or
Yeah.
just kill you.
And he
but-
doesn't do it.
Yeah.
He just doesn't do it. But I also think he's kind of like, yeah, maybe being king would suck. Because, this is the tragedy of Game of Thrones is that all these people are playing the Game of Thrones, but the more power you get, like,
the less you want it.
yeah, the more in danger you get and stuff like, which I always think it's so funny that John's like, I don't really want more power, but people continue to push
Dude,
him into positions of
This
power.
j-
You know?
this guy is the king of I don't want it.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
literally does not want it. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, they captured Aegon, and
Mhm.
there was like a small fight, that happened, and one of the twins was like, "Oh, I'm out of this. Like, I'm done." You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Otto was like, "Oh, well played. We're on the same side, blah 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 blah."
Mhm.
But clearly Otto wanted him so he can like groom Aegon.
Kind of creepy too when he said you look like your mother and
He's like,
in
"God,
certain
you're hot
lights."
right now." It's
Yeah,
basically what he's
exactly,
saying.
Exactly, that is what he's saying. Yeah.
But that's not as creepy as what the next scene follows. With
Feet pick at Lara Strong.
Larry
yes.
Strong, yeah. I saw Blind Wave react to it, and I forgot what the
they were
member was.
they were like, what?
No, but like one of them, the one on the far right, I forget what his name is, the one with the glasses on the far.
Oh, yeah,
on the-
yeah.
He was like, I don't know if it was. This is a YouTube channel that reacts to like anything, like
Yeah.
anime, TV shows, and I was watching them, and I usually watch them because they have great they talk about the show in great discussion and like
Yeah.
have funny reactions to it. But they said like. This is like the first OnlyFans for
Yeah,
like
it is.
information. I'm like, oh my
is.
god, that's true.
It's feet picks.
But it's so sad how as really just uncomfortable that scene is. It's kind of sad, like you're queen, and you have
Mhm.
to do this still to like, you know what I mean?
To
Like
stay in
not
power,
even.
yeah.
I just want to fly by with Cersei. Like I
No.
probably wouldn't like happen. She'd be
No.
like, oh no, I'll kill you if you don't tell me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Well, Cersei would be like, okay.
Obviously, Alicent
yeah.
isn't that kind of person, but like she has to like do this. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's why I was always like, when Cersei allowed Euron to have sex with her, I was like, never would happen. Never.
No.
Never in the books would ever
Yeah.
happen, ever.
But even that's like different
Ever.
than just like this is low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's one thing, but this is like
And also, she's like all into the faith of the Seven, and you're like, man, this is not like it just goes to show that maybe her like faith to the Seven is more of like kind of a facade, because the High Towers and the faith of the Seven, they go way back. But let's move forward, and then they get to the dragon pit, and wasn't the heraldry of that scene really nice?
oh, when he gets the coronation.
Yeah, and like they have like
Yeah, it
these
makes you feel like
swords
he's
and stuff.
like yeah, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and
Like,
he's walking by, and the actor did really well with
Yeah.
it, where he was like,
he's like I guess
he was
you
like,
know.
this is what it feels like to be special,
Yeah. But I mentioned to you before that I had like, and now that I think about it, it's really not that big of a deal. But it had me scratching my head.
Yes.
With
I have
this
some
scene,
problem with it too. But
with this scene.
yeah.
Before this, we see Rhaenys. She was like kept in her chambers, and Alicent tried to make a deal, kind of in a sense, said like, if you want to prevent peace, stay here, side with us, or just don't be in the conflict, because like Rhaenyra would want like your dragon.
Some of the best dialogue of the
She's
series so
like
far.
it should have been you who should have been
Yeah.
queen. It's like Viserys, yeah, that guy was awful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
the line that really stuck with me was when Alicent was like, "Oh, we can't rule, but we can rule through our husbands," and she was like, and Rhaenys was like, "That's cap," and she was like, "You don't want to be free. You just want to build a window in your own prison," and I was like, "Gah." And it is true. Like
it ties in with that Laris scene, like with the exchanging of information.
Exactly.
How low she has to stoop to go, even though she's queen.
Yeah,
Like,
and even the fact that she's putting her awful, horrible son, who she doesn't even love, on the throne
Yeah.
is still even like
she's
still
like,
even
do you
low.
do you really love me? He's like, you imbecile.
Yeah,
she can't even.
exactly.
She's like, I'm done with you. Like, you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, but Rhaenys, she gets freed out of her chambers
Yes.
by I don't know who. Is it like a nobody or I don't
no,
know. Not
it was
a nobody.
Eric
Oh.
because one of them is just following orders,
Okay.
and the other one has a moral compass.
Okay, so that was
Yeah.
that one. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so he leads her, tries to like get her on a boat, and says, "I need my dragon." It's like, "Well, no, you can't. It's too
Well,
late."
no.
Like, no, like you want to escape with like just go to the boat, and then but they get like drifted apart because there's a huge crowd heading
Yeah.
towards the dragon's keep.
Awful idea by Eric, by the way, because like the red queen is like I think the second or the third biggest dragon, but I think I don't know. There is also another dragon who we haven't seen yet that we'll see next week. But yeah,
Yeah, but she ends up getting there and then sneaking down into the basement. But
Mhm.
and the gripe, the one of the gripes I had, I'm like, why? We know what happens, so we know like
Mhm.
we know what Rhaenys does. So, but it makes you, it's just convenient that why the coronation is held at the Dragon Pit in the first place. It's
Yeah,
always
whoever
held,
decided-
always held at the Red Keep. Why? We obviously know, so it's just lazy writing to show. And it is a nitpick, but it's just like an excuse for her
Well,
to so surprise from
in the
underneath. You know what I mean?
books,
Like,
in the books, it until the dragon pit is destroyed, which I can't talk about when that happens and what will happen. But until the dragon pit is destroyed, coronations happen at the dragon pit. It's
Oh,
it's
really?
basically a ginormous coliseum.
but it didn't happen
know?
with Rhaenyra. Why didn't it happen there?
Because that wasn't her coronation. That was people swearing, and that was only the lords. Coronations
Oh, okay.
happen with ginormous. Coronations happen immediately after the king dies, and it's just has the people of King's Landing in it, the citizens of King's Landing.
Where was the place where Viserys got sworn in? Was that the Dragon Keep too?
That was
like
not the Dragon
underground.
Keep.
That
That was at Harrenhal.
Oh, okay,
And
that looked like it was
was-
underground. I'm like, what is
No,
this place?
That
I'm like,
was the council at Harrenhal, but that was different because that was nobody knew who was going to be king or queen after Jaehaerys. When Jaehaerys died, Viserys did get it, and his coronation probably happened at the Dragon Pit.
okay.
But he wasn't.
I didn't know
he
that.
wasn't. He didn't have a coronation there, but they were
Well,
having a voting.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
glad that was cleared up because I thought
Yeah.
I was like, big L if that was the case.
But
If you just
whoever-
switched it up on like.
Whoever had the idea to have the coronations, which is how it happens in the books, whoever had that idea needs to be fired because, like,
Yeah.
there are so many dragons under there that could
Yeah.
just come up and kill anybody.
Yeah,
you know?
but Aegon gets inducted, like he becomes king, and then there's a moment of small celebration at least for them, and like maybe this can go well. People actually like me. We have support. Alicent's like, oh, we didn't just usurp. Like people are supporting us. People like us.
Well, I think mob mentality is such a big part of Game of Thrones.
No, yeah, but they were expecting like a what? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they
well,
were
'cause
expecting like a different reaction.
when one person claps, like they're all clapping. You know,
but
So-
they expected like a
yeah.
full-on riot.
Yeah, of course, of
like
course.
justifiably so. But before that happened, a little rain on the parade happens, and by rain you mean dragon, and by parade you mean under the floor.
Death.
Yeah. So she just like she like errands the place like from Marley.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like from Attack on Titan. She literally does that.
Oh my God, she does do that. Holy
she
crap.
just like all we
She
were
does.
all we were missing was a few military leaders in the midst of that to make it more
Yeah.
dangerous. But
And he was like doing the stance like that the guy was doing too. Oh
Yeah, the
my God,
like,
dude,
yeah.
you're so right.
it's like yeah, like,
good,
yeah.
exactly.
So
I wonder, because
If-
this didn't happen in the books. Do you think maybe they took?
they saw it.
They
write,
maybe
write
saw
down.
Attack
Write
on
it down.
Titan. Write that down. Write that down.
So
maybe, yeah.
and you were mentioning how like Rhaenys killing these innocent civilians in the capital of Westeros. How people are gonna be mad? At least the people in King's Landing. You just killed people and you're like bye, and then like out
hey
in.
man,
You just at least not entire Westeros.
Yeah.
But they might feel indifferent, but the people in King's Landing, they're gonna want some payback or answers.
yes.
Why she just killed innocents and fled away. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. And I think a lot of people on Twitter are like, "Yes, Queen."
Yeah,
I'm like-
exactly, and, like-
and I'm like, guys, she just murdered a whole
And-
bunch of civilians.
And
dude.
if there was any chance of Rhaenyra wanting peace even after this, some like, hey, let's not do this. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
just instantly declared war on their behalf, whether they'd like to or not. Now,
well, yeah,
this is like,
but
and,
yeah,
and it-
we'll see how that goes.
and it's
yeah.
like, why wouldn't she kill them? You know what I mean?
I-
if you really are gonna be like, oh, I want no say in this fight, you literally just had
that's the thing that I had. The two things that I had the most problems with is I don't know how Rhaenys broke through the floor because I'm pretty sure that's like
Cement.
cement,
stone,
Yeah,
like-
can dragons break through stone? If so, that's kind of broken. But I mean,
Yeah.
like OP. But I mean, I guess that they can. I mean,
But
the
from
Red Queen
from
is
just
huge.
standing up is like kind of hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, but if it gives me a cool moment, I'm ready to suspend my disbelief, you know. Yeah, I've seen a couple of things that, number one, I've heard that even though it happens all the time in Game of Thrones, one of the largest sins, and I think the number one sin in Game of Thrones is kinslaying, right? When you kill people of your own blood, that is bad. And your name will be slandered for it. So if she murdered all these Targaryens all at once, you know, it would be bad. Number two, I also don't think it's her decision to make, right? Kill all these people and just kind of screw off. I don't think that's quite what she wanted to do. I think she wanted to show them that, like, look, I have humility. Like, I'm choosing peace. Like, because she doesn't know the future, right?
Yeah.
And if she kills them right now, she denies any possible future. So she has no idea. Now, if you've read the books, she probably should have killed him.
But I mean, I don't know. You are right.
Yeah.
I just feel like a normal, at least in person in power, who know what's at stake. You either commit or never have done it. You shouldn't have done it.
No,
at
definitely.
All. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
definitely. But that's why I love Game of Thrones, is that people have such indecisions. But I also think the third one, which is the one that I thought when I first watched it, was that she sees herself in Alicent a little bit, and she saw her protecting Aegon, which is fascinating, right? Aegon has the crown of the conqueror. He has all of heraldry and all of this kind of dress up by Otto and the Queen, that this is the second coming of Aegon, the best, or the one of the greatest kings ever, and he's hiding behind his mom. You know, and so that's really sad.
because she's lost everybody.
Yeah.
Well, at least for what she knows. You know
what
what I
she
mean?
knows,
which is unfortunate. I like that better than just like, but it's still like it's still like a you should have killed.
You should have killed him.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't make any sense other than like to keep the story going, because like it's because that's not how they die. Like no duh, but that shouldn't be an excuse. But like, but I like that idea that's why she didn't do it. But it just had me scratching my head.
It was a cool moment when she went like. And then like went out.
Cool armor, by the way. Really cool
awesome armor.
Yeah.
One of my biggest issues with the later seasons of Game of Thrones was that everybody was just wearing like a different hue of gray, Yeah. And the costumes were boring.
One of the coolest armors and coolest like fan arts is Robert
Kelly,
Baratheon in his like in his yellow like armor outfit. So
fighting
awesome.
against Rhaegar Targaryen.
Yeah.
At the battle of the
Trident?
battle at the Trident. Yeah. Awesome.
Really cool.
Hope we get to see that in live action. I want to see that in live action.
Everyone wants that so bad.
I know.
If you just see like all the like fan art of all the events that transpire around that, really cool.
Dude.
Really cool.
I think after this they're gonna do the Blackfire Rebellion, which is also really cool. But I also want to see the War of the Nine Penny Kings.
Yeah.
I want to see a young.
Those
Tywin.
are Ben's. Do it for Ben's sake, because he wants to see those done. Yeah.
I want to see a young Tywin Lannister. If you could do a whole show about Tywin, do it and cast me as Tywin.
Speaking of people we want to see, we're gonna get some Starks if you didn't see like the preview, but really good stuff. And the final episode, of course. So we're gonna get
until 2 years. Hopefully the podcast will still be going at that point.
Yeah. Either way, we're gonna be watching. We can't wait, for that. But it's been a really good journey, and I'm really glad that Game of Thrones has got back.
It's back.
Yeah,
baby.
It's back. Yeah,
it's back.
It's officially back. And
did you see in the preview, since you saw it, did you see how cool like the map looks, like the Dragonstone map with the lava flowing through it?
Yeah,
dude, awesome. Like that's what I'm talking about. That's the stuff that Dan and Dave, they were like, no,
too
that's
cheesy
not
or
realistic.
too like
Yeah, it's too cheesy. Don't do it. But in this, it's just it makes me so. It's like so awesome.
Yeah,
this is pure George R.R. Martin. Like when Aemond in the last episode said, "Wise, brave, strong." God, that is George R.R. Martin to the T.
Yeah.
Like I could read that in the book. It's brilliant. And I think it's really, really good. So I'm excited for the final episode.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about it next week. But let's quickly try to catch. shows that we're about to talk about. And speaking of shows, do you want to get straight into House of the Dragon?
Hot D.
Won't return for another 2 years.
Peter Dinklage. Yeah. Welcome everyone to our Hot D. I don't know why I did that, but
I don't know.
House of the Dragon. It's
Hinga
over.
dinga durgan.
Hinga dinga durgan. But let's start with this. Edgar, if you told me a couple months ago that I would be fully immersed, fully realized back into this world, like it's what I think about daily, I would have.
If you told me that
yeah.
Game of Thrones if a Game of Thrones series would be released and people would like it, I'd tell you to go back to Bizarro World wherever you came from, because that doesn't exist.
Was it like 8 months ago when we saw like the pictures released and it was
and we're like, yeah, this is not going to work.
And we're like,
out.
This looks awful.
I mean,
like,
everyone thought that for the most part, because like, you know, it's synonymous that that Game of Thrones flopped in their face, that no one would want to touch it. No one would want to even talk about it because it fell out of the zeitgeist so hard that like not even a fan base like The Last Jedi like fans, as controversial as that was, people still watch that. People still talk about it because of it's just, you know, one way or another, it's still in the know.
Yeah,
and Game of Thrones just fell out of it that we wanted to forget about it.
And it's also comes with the depression of, you know, the books might never be finished. So
hey, 75% confirmed now. I mean, take it as you will. Like, that's
so
what
that
George
means,
R. R. Martin
we
meant.
got 5 years left. Awesome, great. But I mean, you know, I think that I was more what most of the reviews I see today or the other day that I've been looking at them has been, I was pleasantly surprised. I was more than pleasantly surprised in this brought me back in. This got me to reading all the books again.
It was a definite surprise.
And
I thought this wouldn't work, and I thought this would fail, or people just wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, dude.
And it was the biggest it's either the biggest HBO audience viewership since the finale of Game of Thrones, or it's the biggest viewership since then. I don't know which one it was.
Either or, yeah.
And it managed to do ridiculous numbers during NBA games and the Sunday Night Football happening, which are pretty heavy to compete with. But it did far better than we ever thought it would. It is fantastic. So we talked about every episode up until now. If you haven't caught up, watch the episodes, and then not only on the House of the Dragon, but like on our reviews with every, because we started from episode 1, because like it just got our attention that much up until now. The final episode.
It's been a good 8 weeks.
Yeah,
or 10 weeks.
But before the episode even came out, it leaked.
Yes,
ridiculously so.
HBO, what are you doing?
What? I don't know. I was like, I thought people were just getting like still shots from like pictures from like behind the scenes would be one thing, but like people just leaked the entire episode. I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah, and the thing with HBO leaks is that they are definite. Like once something leaks from HBO, it is what it is. Like
they don't have the Toei animation dedication to destroy whoever leaked it. You know what I mean?
But it's definite, because it's like, I remember episode 3, After the Long Night, there was a big leak in season 8, and it said Bran would become king, and I was like, what is this? You know,
it's just fanfic.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is absurd.
Real.
This is fake. And then it followed it to the T, and I was like, oh wow. You know.
Yeah.
But before we start the episode, let's talk about something real quick. And I might actually clip this and make it into its own video, because it is not just important for House of the Dragon. It's very, very, very prevalent in all of anime and manga.
Any fan base, really, and their misunderstanding of writing.
Reality, yes, exactly. Shippers bad.
It's not.
Shipping is bad. I know it's not.
It's also
just,
standing.
It's also standing.
Like,
it is standing. Shipping and standing. They just don't. They don't get it. They don't understand writing. They just don't get it. If something is
dumb.
Yes. If something doesn't happen like within their wheelhouse, which is really what Game of Thrones is. Like, it's like, I saw this post that was, listen, if you're this person, a shipper, a stanner, or a blah, 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 Game of Thrones is not for you, and you're new, this is not for you. Because I bet you a lot of these people have come in and was like, oh, let's go, you know. Because Twitter nowadays, even though it wasn't that long ago. It's very different from how season 8 Game of Thrones was, or especially when Game of Thrones first came out, you know. So it's very different. There's a lot more stands. There's a lot more people who find a character and then that's their comfort character. And when their comfort character does something out of their comfort zone, they either block it out of their memory or blame it on the writers. And which I find so fascinating how 360 they can get against writers. You know, like one episode they can be like, thank you guys for making Damon such an amazing character. And then the next episode they'd be like, oh my God, Matt Smith is the only person who understands his character. And I was like, but didn't they create the character? Like, isn't this like, didn't they?
He improvises one scene and they think that he just wrote the entire character. It's like, you know what I mean?
They're like, I hope he's in the writer's room. And I'm like, bro, Matt Smith doesn't have time to be sitting in the writer's room. like that man is jumping from project to project. Saturdays he's performing at the Globe, but then Sundays he's performing Doctor Who. You know, he doesn't have time for that. It's absurd. And it also harkens back to My Hero Academia, like when people were sending death threats to Kohei Horikoshi and
because
saying,
one thing didn't, you know, because Deku didn't look at Bakugo for longer than 2 seconds. Like,
it was like, or sending him stuff like, if this character doesn't end up with this character, then
it happened
like,
with Attack on Titan. Like if Aaron and Mikasa don't get together, I will like burn your house down. I'm like, bro, calm down. Like
it's a story, dog. And I think that's what
it's just a drawing, son. Calm down.
Calm down, son. It's just a drawing. And I think that's what a lot of these people don't understand. And George R. Martin had a really good quote where he was like, dude, we're just making stories. Like, calm down.
Can you imagine Shakespeare getting this? They both die in the end. Shakespeare, we're going to cancel you so hard.
No, these people would have gone like, oh my God, I ship Romeo and Mercutio. You know, they would have done that.
They would not be able to handle Greek and like Shakespeare theater back in the day.
Exactly.
Because of how tragic the stories were.
And
like,
it's absurd because these people, they go, it's so out of character. Didn't he like?
Isn't he like a war criminal and like maim civilians?
Let's talk about what's the first thing we see him do. He walks up to his city watch and he's like, "We're gonna go kill and murder all these civilians, and we're gonna
cut up all the body parts, like
exactly. And I'm gonna be smiling while I'm doing it."
And you know, my brother's son, stillbirth that just happened. Yeah, he was king for a day, and then I don't know, man. It's just and people like. And yes, he played that role perfectly so. Enough for you to enjoy him as a character.
Anybody other than Matt Smith. This doesn't happen. Anybody other than Matt Smith. But it's a perfect casting choice. This is what Damon, he has to be filled with this
snarky,
charisma.
I don't know. He's fantastic, but people take it to a level to where yes, they understand his character, what there is. Like, we're not calling people like blind to that, but it's like to a point to where he does something good, and then like all of a sudden he's like, oh, I can change him, or oh, he's a good person, even though like yes, he's a war criminal. People are like, yeah, they're both like killers and like whatever, and then like if they do something uncomfortable or something not like, oh, he can kill 1,000 people, but if he like abuses women, he's like, you know,
exactly.
I
think that's because it's like nobody nowadays, at least that we know of, is killing like 1,000 humans. You know, unless you like in our
if it's too real or something like that. If it's
too real, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Like him choking like his wife is like something that could happen nowadays. Like that control. It could happen. So people, they get all, oh, he would never do this. Even though a couple episodes ago, when he came back as King of the Narrow Sea, he said that, yeah, you know, all those people who served the crab feeder. Yeah, we fed them to the crabs.
Yeah. And you forget this entire time that he is married to his niece.
That he groomed.
What is wrong with you people?
He groomed from episode 1, dude.
How is this someone that you can accurately say that, no, he's a bad person because of this, but I'm going to ignore everything else, you know?
Yeah. And they say they don't want Damon to be gray. They want him to be pitch black. And as a great character, he has to do some pitch black things. Otherwise, he's not a great character. You know, this is what I'm saying.
And that's only that, like, that's the tip of the iceberg, because they obviously were supposed to like draw our attention and be empathetic
Yes.
more so to Team Black and to Rhaenyra and her side.
And that's just how
And
it
that
is.
is and that is
yeah.
and anyone can see that. But and I was having trouble trying to figure out why this entire time I was like, well, you got to see it from the Greens' perspective, or you got to.
That's what I was trying to do,
why
too,
I was like,
yeah.
why do I keep like siding with Allison even though I know that they're writing her from an antagonistic view? It's because everyone keeps shoving down my throat how much they're standing Team Black to the point to where I
Yeah.
want to see them fail. I'm like, that's why, because they keep putting them on, keep putting Rhaenyra on a
Yeah.
pedestal when they keep wanting to see all the bad in Allison and all her family. Yeah, are they monsters? Yes. You have
Yes.
Aegon, you have Aemon, who's hell bent on like starting war, and and justifiably he already did.
Yeah, but Alicent has good like reasons, like she's like, saying that these people like her children are, bastards. It's not wrong.
No.
Like she's not incorrect. Even Vaemon Velaryon a couple episodes ago when he was like, "No, I shouldn't." You probably should inherit the Driftwood throne, but sadly,
It went the wrong way.
yeah. But I still support Team Black. But it's still like I feel for
they
him,
just want one side to be completely perfect. Like
Exactly.
Like, if they do anything, like they're perfect, and then anything that the Greens do is all because they're the bad guys,
Yeah,
100%,
they're the bad guys.
and they're supposed to stay that way.
Even though Aemond arguably might be, now that Viserys is gone, he might be one of the most interesting characters in the show. Like I really, really like his character, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about more about what happens in this episode.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head. The way I started noticing this, Edgar, was all the way back when Avatar: The Last Airbender was airing, and people were saying
that was a while back.
Yeah, and people were saying the writing was awful because Katara and Zuko didn't get together.
That's stupid.
And they would say stuff like, "Oh, well, Aang and Katara's relationship wasn't built up," and that nothing makes my blood vessels boil more.
Yeah.
Than
is it that deep? Probably no, but to say it wasn't built up is the stupidest thing.
That's
because
what I'm saying.
Literally from the
yeah.
first episode, we know that Aang has feelings for Katara, and it's
And-
so dumb.
And to preface this, we don't. If you think the writing is bad, that's fine. Like we're not here to police you on whether you think a show is bad. We're not here to police you whether you think this person should get with this character,
or whether you like it or not.
Like the episode 2 of My Hero Academia, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely ship Jiro and Kaminari. Like that's adorable.
But if they don't end up
It's
together,
really
and if we disagree with that choice,
Yeah.
that's where it stops.
That's
We're like,
fine.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't like that, but I'm not gonna do anything
the,
more.
The issue is when it begins to be when people begin to get angry at the writers and the showrunners, and they say that they ruined it, and it's like this big hubbub. I loved when the episode aired. All that stuff stopped. It was literally just praise.
It
for
was
the
just. It was.
episode.
I feel like the people who went out to the leaks were like the super not diehard, but you know what I mean. I don't know.
They weren't diehard of the story. They're the people who skip to the Damon parts and don't watch the rest.
Yeah. And
These-
that's also not a good thing. Are you really a fan of the show if you're just gonna block out a scene?
Yeah.
Whether you can argue if there's a scene in The Last Jedi that makes it bad, that's it's not inherently the same. But if you're just gonna block out a scene, would you really be able to justifiably the show as a whole, or critique it badly, poorly? If you're just gonna ignore it that it never happened.
Yeah, man. I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
It's just if this is what you're interested in, if you want to see black and white, if you want to see
A
good
romance
versus evil,
for some reason in the story that really isn't meant out to be.
But they're romance and love is a huge part of A Song of Ice and Fire. It is the reason why people do the love of a family member, the love for a loved one, the love of friendship. That stuff is the reason why all this stuff is happening. The love of a son, the love of a mother, the dedication to one another. It's the reason why this is happening.
But they want Bachelor type reality show.
But it's not the show.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not the show.
Yeah.
The show is the consequences of those pursuits, which is why I think that characters like Laris is so interesting because he's like, no, I don't have time for those love interests.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, let's get into the episode and we can pinpoint some of the most more specific stuff that we liked. I guess the first thing we need to talk about is Rhaenyra's stillbirth. Really,
This show really, really is like the best pregnancy, like the best birth control ad I've ever seen.
yeah, that's what
Because
I'm
like
saying.
it's
dude.
like
Yeah.
they really like, hey, have you seen like the most awful like pregnant births ever? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna do that like several times.
Yes.
Like, and I'm like gripped to my seat and I can't look away. Like,
I'm like, yeah, this is the worst. And just this idea of like there's something in your body and you want it to just get out of you is just so horrific.
even like
bro.
the handmaidens and like were like, I'm pretty sure they've seen plenty of births before.
Yeah,
They were like,
man.
just like watching a horror.
Yeah,
like it was a
dude.
horror scene. It was awful.
Yeah,
it was
dude. It was a horror scene in the books. Which I'm surprised that they didn't focus on this more. In the books, Rhaenyra's baby comes out scaly and like a dragon, kind of like how Daenerys's baby comes out in the first book,
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, because it comes out all decrepit and kind of like half dragon, and it can't like breathe and be a proper human being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same in this one. But yeah, it is a sad scene, and this is where people began to have issues, you know. People were like,
why wasn't Damon there?
yeah, why
Like,
wasn't Damon there? But Damon is, you have to realize, Damon, I think that a lot of people were like, oh, Damon is completely different this episode. Yeah, maybe somebody starting a war against your family does that to you.
and
know?
your brother dying?
Yeah, that's what like the pressure of this. I have a really good quote. That was from. Did you read this? It was from Emma Darcy, and she was talking about the choking scene specifically. And she said Emma Darcy on Damon choking Rhaenyra, and she's put it perfectly. This is what good work and good actors do. They look at the facts and then they find the feelings in it. So she says, me and Matt talked about this scene a lot. We wanted to make sure we understood it intimately. That moment could be perceived as a huge change in their dynamic. In that scene, by the fireplace, two things happen at once. First, you have two characters who are grieving. Grief. That's a huge thing. That's a huge reason why these characters are doing what they're doing, you know? And I think one might say that Damon is managing that grief less eloquently than Rhaenyra is.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think Damon has been violent to her before, although there's been a lot of conflict. But fundamentally, when Rhaenyra realizes Damon was never taught the prophecy, she suddenly gains legitimacy because she understood it was her. She was chosen for this. She begged him to show her what to do because she can't do it alone. And I think in this scene, she gets a message from beyond the grave, the moment that she understands that Damon wasn't chosen. Wow, it was never you. Simultaneously, Damon gets shafted from beyond the grave by his brother, the one he loves more than anybody in the show. On that one hand, he can say that he doesn't believe in prophecies, but he was never trusted to it anyway.
Yeah, people forget that the reason this entire story and show exists because they did not want Damon to be king, because he
Yeah.
was a psychopath and a murderer and completely unstable. That's literally why Viserys was like, nah, I'm gonna choose with my daughter, even though the entire kingdom
Yeah.
might hate it or it might cause conflict later because of woman being like king or queen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Otto's big argument, like Otto's only goal in the first episode was get Damon out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, and that might have been because Damon was strong-willed and he would have fought against him at court. But still, he said Damon would have been another Maegor or worse.
Yeah.
You know, which to be honest, he probably would have been.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so that is completely on the nose. Damon is going through an extremely stressful period.
Yeah.
His wife is he probably doesn't want to get anywhere near her during pregnancy because his last wife died for pregnancy, and he doesn't want to face it.
Someone pointed that
You know?
out because he did not want to have that choice again
Yeah.
of like, what do you want to do? You want to kill her or do you want to try to save the baby? And he probably didn't want to be in the room at all for that.
Yeah,
He didn't want
exactly.
to go through that at all. Like, and it just baffles me how people manage to read that entire thing and get it completely wrong. And one might say, well, you guys are getting it wrong. Well, I don't know. I mean, I mean, there's like denial,
dude.
and then there's like
Yeah.
a matter of opinion. and
Yeah.
like, and it's just, and everything we've seen up to this
Yeah.
point goes to prove what we're saying, and but ignoring all that, the scene was like great and handling grief
towards
in different
the
ways.
end of this discussion, I'll talk a little bit more about, just real quick, about people saying and comparing stuff to the books, because it's making me really angry.
People were
to
like
be
pulling
honest.
the book, expecting like, I'm pretty sure half the people who were on the opposite side who pulled out the book only like, quickly, how can I one line? Oh, there you go. That could help me like defend my argument, when in reality I did not read the books at all.
That's what I'm saying, and I'll talk about that more. And it has a lot to do with the final scene. But yeah, and then we get this really cool scene where Damon's like, oh, good thing you're here, Prince. We need you and your dragon to like survey the skies. And he's like, did you not hear what I said? And Damon was like, okay, come with me. I'll show you the true meaning of loyalty. I got scared.
Yeah,
I was like,
I thought
what
he
is
was
gonna
gonna
do
hurt
to
him or something.
Yeah, he was like, I'll show you the true meaning of loyalty. But it was an important, lesson. And even though Damon is kind of acting on willpower in this one, he is kind of, to be honest, he might have been right. If they acted sooner, if they decided sooner, if they sent like Luke or Jace off earlier, maybe they would have beaten Aemon there, and maybe Luke would still be alive.
These last 3 episodes were like a chicken game of sorts. Like, one could, like, Alicent could have ended the war if she killed and sent off like her armies to kill Rhaenyra right then and there, or something. Like, they could have ended the war in this in the previous episode, and Rhaenyra could have ended the war instantly in this episode. But they didn't, and it kind of like blew out of proportion.
Another problem that people had was when Rhaenyra said off to plot his war, and people are like, oh, they're making Rhaenyra just a good guy, and I'm like, no, they're making Rhaenyra, I don't want to go to war yet, I want to survey my options, like a smart person.
like he's starting a war, but there is no war yet. We have to like not
there
like,
was no catalyst yet. It's all just talk right now.
Yeah.
There was no official decree. But yeah, and then of course the baby dies, and a moment where I teared up a little bit, Sir Eric, or is it Arik? I don't know which one it is.
It was either Aaron or Eric, right?
It was Eric or Arik.
Arik.
Yeah.
I think it was Eric.
I think it was Eric too. But he shows up with Viserys' crown. What do you think of that moment?
Yeah, he snagged it. Good snag for that. But he gives it to Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
A really nice moment to prove his loyalty.
And he crowns her, which makes me think that he might be her Kingsguard. Her Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
That'd be. I thought. I mean, the other guy, he'll be returned with them, right? The one who.
I'll give you a little spoiler. Harold Westerling in the books, he is said in one line, and it's basically Harold Westerling exists. And so everything and it's exciting because Harold Westerling in the show, everything that happens to him from beyond this point is new. It's I don't know about anything about.
So he might be there, or he might die, or might just disappear. But very nice moment. And I like this, and I like the moment where it shows Daemon holding the one thing that he wanted, but he steps down and he gives it to Rhaenyra.
I also think it was he didn't realize Viserys was truly gone until he held that crown.
Yeah, that too.
And he was looking at the Targaryen sigil, which I love that crown, by the way, because the crown that Aegon II is wearing,
the Conqueror's crown,
it's
right?
the Conqueror's crown, and it's very blocky and black, like kind of a death,
red,
it's kind of like a grave, a tomb, But this one, it has all the houses, the great houses of Westeros' sigils on it. So it's a crown of unity. That's why Jaehaerys wore it, Viserys wore it. But Maegor the Cruel and Aegon the Conqueror wore the Conqueror's crown. So this is just an I don't
anyone who did history in Westeros, looking at the crown, like, isn't that the crown that those two weird evil kings had?
But they're still like, hey, that's cool. But they weren't alive during that time.
No, I know, but anyone who read books, that's a bit sus of a crown.
So the crowd is probably like, Aegon the Conqueror, cool. What a cool name.
Yeah.
Awesome.
History definitely doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah, exactly.
The moment after that, I mean, we see Rhaenyra is like that was an unofficial official coronation of sorts.
And she's got
Really
some
nice.
Kingsguard to her.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, I
And
really
apparently
like
we'll
that.
be getting some more. Damon's like, hey, my boys are still over there. They're gonna come back to me
Yeah.
whenever I call for them. Really nice.
I'm interested to see what happens with that, because that is like, I'm just like, oh yeah, he did create, like, episode 1 was so long ago, so he did create the gold cloak. So I wonder if they fully dedicated themselves to Otto, or if some of them will come running back.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But what's the scene right after this? Is it when they start plotting? Oh,
when they
the
start
map.
plotting.
We see the map, the really cool one.
Yes.
We saw it in the preview. I didn't know. I thought it was just lava, but they heated up or something.
They heated it up and it rose.
And it's really cool.
Isn't
I
it
really like
awesome?
that. Yeah, it's
we,
like
we
a
should
unique.
we should buy it and get a D&D party.
Every D&D like party,
Yeah.
like we gotta get that.
I would love to do a Westeros D&D campaign. That'd be awesome.
I can't
Yeah.
get into D&D. I'm like, it's like a very impressive and yet intimidating and patient feat to do. And this is nerd is, I don't say nerd in a connotative way. I say I say it in a good way.
Yeah.
I feel like D&D is like one of the most nerdiest things to do, because literally it is a game that you have to make up and really immerse yourself in. Like really immerse yourself in. Like and you have to build it bottom up. Like what's the biggest one? Critical Role. I see clips of it. And like critical, it is like one of the biggest niche things too.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Matthew Mercer? What the heck? Other voice actors? I'm like, can I get into this? I'm like, oh, it's like D&D, and it's really like
It's
long,
really intense.
and there's like a lot of episodes. And I saw like a clip, and he's like standing at the door is Vecna, and everyone's like, ah! I'm like, what's going on? What's going on right now? Like, am I supposed to be excited? And I'm like, wow, like they just make these stories and like just like make them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just really impressive to where I don't know. I've tried to get into D&D, but it's just like really buying that table is gonna be like a fortune. But you'll bet that that someone will make it a replica of it.
God, I would just love to do because there's so much.
Even just
that
the
you could
dining
do.
table of like Westeros, like that would be like cool.
Because I've watched some D&D campaigns where there are like wars and stuff. That is really fun and really cool. Like
it's like Battleship, but like more intense.
Yeah, but like it's literally free, like free and stuff. It's so great. But you know, they talk about the great houses at this.
Yeah, I like how they start in we're back on House of the Dragon now. I like how just like I like how they start like, oh, who's on our side? Oh, them, and Lannisters obviously no.
Lannister's been on the wrong side of history, which is why it's so fascinating that characters like Jaime and Tyrion at least have a little bit of. It's like they're trying to fight against their family legacy, and
literally the ones who are always on the right side of history, the Starks, is like, we never knew a Stark was broken their oath, and I was like, Rob, but not in a wrong way, but like.
But Rob also, like, I was thinking about this, but Rob also he kept by breaking that oath, he kept his honor and in the books Jane Westerling's honor intact, because he had intercourse with her and he had to marry her to keep his honor intact. So in a way he did kind of keep his oath in the way of losing another, but still
in a very obvious way he got killed for breaking the one thing.
But still, to be honest, Catelyn should be for blame for that, because that deal with awful deal.
Well, I mean, what was it? It was like, marry my daughters and we'll let you pass.
We'll let you go through instead of going around, which would have taken.
Oh,
like an extra
then no,
day or
yeah.
two.
Oh,
because they wanted to get to King's Landing as soon as possible to save Ned. But I mean,
yeah, that was a hefty thing. But then again, when you make a
Song of Ice and Fire is so good.
Like it's like one small thing. It's like no one could have seen it coming. Like why kill? I mean, but also like, you made a promise. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
But this one is really important in terms of like what side you pick. You know what I mean? It's not just a matter of, oh, I pick one queen and like I'll call them king, or I'll pick one king and like it's not like, oh, he's king of the north, so but they're at war. You pick one side, you're gonna have to stick to it.
But it's also power grabs. But as we see later in the episode, the Baratheons are like, okay, what are you gonna give me? I
really like that scene.
Me too.
But I
Yeah,
want to get to it.
move on.
What else happens?
Well, he says one of the lords, I believe it's Celtigar, who is awesome in the books, by the way. Celtigar is another house that comes from Old Valyria, but they're a lesser house, so the Valerians and Targaryens are like, oh, we're the only houses from Old Valyria, which is not true. House Celtigar is, and in the books, Lord Celtigar, he has this gigantic Valyrian axe that he uses, and apparently he like cut through 4 people at once and beheaded them with that gigantic Valyrian axe. It was awesome.
Him
He's
and Robert Baratheon would have been friends.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were, but because he in the books, Lord Celtigar was worked with Stannis, so he was for them.
Nice.
But yeah, so one of them, I believe Lord Celtigar says, your house needs something that has not been seen since the days of Old Valyria, which is dragons. Yeah.
And they have a lot, but they only have a few grown ones, and then there's the young ones they have. But they do have a lot of eggs and a lot of hatchlings, to be given out. Maybe Lena will be given one as well.
Yeah.
Damon's daughter.
Daemon,
Lena's her name, right?
Yeah, Lena. Lena Velaryon.
Yeah, she's gonna be. She was the one that said that. She was the one that was supposed to, and I say supposed to with quotes on them because,
That's
dragons.
not really how dragons work.
Yeah, it's not like oh, this is my dad's car. He promised it to me, and then the second son got it. That's not how it works. They have to choose. They have to choose their owners, and people, that was like another conversation that people were having and arguing over. Well, this is the dragon he stole. I'm like, yes. Is it awkward and not right to take the dragon on the close to the mother's death? Like,
yes.
No. I mean, yes, but like he did not steal it. It's like, and it is a big dragon to risk. If he picked them, then what are you gonna do? Like,
Aemon's got the balls, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was interesting, and I love how Daemon was like, "Oh, we also have Meleys," and Rhaenys was like, Mela or something, whatever her name, and Rhaenys was like, "Oh no, you don't, not yet." Like she was like, "Well, hold up, like you don't got me yet. Like my husband hasn't said anything, But yeah, that was nice, and then Otto shows up, and Daemon's immediately in lethal mode.
Yeah, big parallel between between the previous. Was it the second episode or the third?
It was the second.
Second episode.
Second episode. Yeah.
Big parallel. Otto meets Daemon again at the bridge, and Rhaenyra comes, but no longer on Otto's side, on Daemon's side. Her side. Big. And I love how he says like, "Let's end this mama's farce now," and it's like the same line that Otto said.
Well, Otto says, the king would never lower himself to entertain such a mama's farce, That's
then Daemon throws it back in his face, like it's so great.
Yeah, there are some funny lines that Otto has said. Like I think in episode 9 he said, "Or are you just another layer in this stinky onion?" And I was like, "What the heck?" I was like, "Why did he say that? Why did he say stinky onion? That's so funny." But and they like draw like the same way, The only difference was Crispy Christmas wasn't there.
And Rhaenyra was like, "Hey, like let's stop," and then like Otto was like, "It's like," and that's a pretty good deal. I'm obviously like they're not gonna do it, and like we know what happens, but like considering the circumstances, that's a really good deal.
Yeah, because like Dragonstone has always been for the heir of the Iron Throne, because the heir. To learn how to rule, they go to Dragonstone and they learn at a specific age.
And then like we won't like everyone who sided with you will be pardoned. There'll be no bloodshed. Like even will allow you to be like cupbearers and like have important like positions and like the.
Which is interesting that Otto says that, because didn't in the last episode he like kill a whole bunch of lords who didn't he already do that?
Yeah.
Like Beesbury's already dead, and that Lord whatever his face, the bald one, he's already hanged. So I think.
But also Rhaenys killed like civilians.
That is true. That is true. That's another thing that audiences are like, "Yes, Queen." I'm like,
when you talk about war and politics, that's like not the way to like do it. Like it's like I did not want us to. See, I mean, it's not now that I think about it, that moment is not as like a big plot hole as much as I think it is. Yeah. But like it wasn't 100% resolved, because she says like this is your war to start, not mine. I'm like, you literally started it for them. Like, there's like no turning back now. They will either have to bend the knee or like there's
exactly.
you completely like.
That's. But I think that moment will be important for how this series ends. There's a big moment that's happening. I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But yeah,
good deal. But they don't take it because
No.
Rhaenyra wants peace because Otto, gives her the paper that Rhaenyra tore with.
good throwback.
Yeah, people were like, oh, too late. Oh, they're not gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just gonna betray.
Well,
Like, no,
and I saw
Allison,
people who were like, "What is this, Riverdale?" and stuff, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, Otto using like the friendship of Rhaenyra and Alicent is such an Otto thing to do, and it's so like. He's messes with your head, and that's what Otto does,
Yeah. Does Allison probably feel this feeling that she wishes she can go back and want them to be friends again? Yeah. But Otto's like, it's great manipulation tactics, and like, and it has double meaning to it.
Yeah.
And people, it was great. And then the scene right after,
choke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the things with that, but it was a great scene to show you, even for those who like didn't agree with all the people who saw the leak we're talking about, it goes to show you, to remind you who Daemon really is as a person. Because
and it just goes to show that Rhaenyra is like Daemon is still just as dangerous as somebody like Aemond or
war
Aegon
hungry
is.
and
exactly. And it shows her that maybe her closest ally isn't necessarily an ally.
Yeah.
So I really think. In reality, the person Rhaenyra can only trust, I believe, is her children, which is sad because half of them who can talk is gone.
Yeah. So we go to the next scene that we see is Rhaenyra. They're wanting to send one. They need to speak to the Starks, to the Baratheons, and I forgot what the other ones were.
The Aarons of the Vale.
And
she says
those are the only two like wild cards that they need to like reassure.
Well, she said the Aarons won't.
Oh, turn away from their own kin.
Won't turn away because my mother was an Aaron.
Yeah, but they need to confirm it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then she sends Jace to Winterfell because Cregan, who is my favorite character outside of the main books, is the same age as Jace. So he's gonna go there and try to get that bromance up there. And then Lena, I believe, is flying because she has Dreamfire.
Oh yeah,
and she's flying to the Tullys.
Wait, I thought Lena didn't have a dragon.
There's
one of them.
One of them doesn't. One of them has Dreamfire.
Yeah.
And one of them's flying to the Riverlands to talk to Lord Grover Tully, and his son Lord Kermit Tully.
This is the one with the Muppets.
This is the one with the Muppets. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Like the Muppet names.
They do not change that name. HBO, I will be furious. 0 out of 10 if you change the names. Anyway. The only acceptable substitution will be Big Bird Tully. Other than that, there is
that's gonna be way more obvious in the face.
Yeah, definitely.
And then obviously, what's his name? Joffrey goes to Jace.
Joffrey is the one who is younger.
Joffrey's the one.
Joffrey's the one who is much younger. Joffrey was the one who was born, who we saw.
Yeah,
born.
but Joffrey, he is taller than him, right?
No, Joffrey is like he's a little boy.
He's not. Oh, there's two. Okay, there's Jace, and then what was the other one?
There's Jace and Luke.
There you go, Lucerys. There you go. I thought there was only two still. But yeah, Lucerys, she stands to Storms and
because it's close. It's nearby. It's just around the corner.
This is the first time we've seen Storms End, right?
Yes, in live action, it's the first. Even though
very intimidating.
Yeah,
very cool.
Even though we've had 3 Baratheon kings and we still haven't, but in the books, Storm's End was made by the like original king of the Stormlands before Aegon the Conqueror came, and the witches put a curse on him, and so no matter where he lived, many storms would come. So it would always be storming, and he would build his castle.
Oh, so the England, basically.
Yeah, basically. Basically, that's basically what the Stormlands are. But but the storm would come, destroy his castle, and he'd rebuild it over and over and over again. And his stubbornness made the castle an absolute fortification. So if you look closely at it, you'll see that it's actually the castle. It looks like a big middle finger
Really?
to the storms, to the gods. It's a gigantic middle finger.
It looks
to the
really
gods.
cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is like, I'm loving the like. I'm surprised we haven't seen it.
Which is great, because in Game of Thrones we got stuff like Casterly Rock, which is supposed to be as tall as the wall, and it looked like absolute crap in Game of Thrones. High Garden and
Maybe do you think they will do Castle Rock in this one?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are going to see Casterly Rock, and we'll probably be able to see High Garden and Old Town.
But do you think they'll like redo the design? Like they'll make it look different?
Yes, 1 billion%. Well, because the reason why I say yes is, number one, the Storm's End thing, and number two, what's the douche Lannister who wanted to marry Rhaenyra in like episode
Tyland?
No, Tyland's the Tyros or something like that. Tyros Lannister. I don't remember. He was like boasting to her, yeah, Casterly Rock is like as big as the wall. It's so tall. It could host, a dragon or two. Oh, if you want to come live with me, you can.
Yeah. So far, the biggest like structure was in Meereen. In Game of Thrones. Yeah, Meereen.
Yeah,
the giant pyramid.
They did really good job with how Essos looked in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I was like, can we get more of all the structures on the that wasn't in Westeros were big. Like in Bravos, the giant statue.
Yeah.
And like the House of Black and White. Like
Yeah,
all
dude.
like very intimate and very different from like what we've seen in Westeros.
Yeah,
but,
dude.
But I'm glad we're getting a taste of like the architecture and like how grand everything is.
Well,
in
because these castles were built long before Aegon came. So there is, in A Song of Ice and Fire, there's kind of an apocalyptic kind of feel, kind of like it's kind of after an apocalypse. Because, thousands of years before there was Bran the Builder, he might have had something to do with it. And maybe there was magic that was
different
made
from
to build
Bran the
these.
Broken.
Yeah, because nowadays the people of Westeros couldn't build Storm's End, like they couldn't do it. It took them all of their willpower
Literally,
to make King's Landing.
It's like that's why I found the world building in Game of Thrones so interesting. In the Song of Ice and Fire, it's all like history has happened.
Yeah.
Like happened to a degree so much that has divided these houses, made these relationships, and built these friendships and enemies to where it's interesting to see them discuss about what's happened. It's why I love the conversations that every single character have, especially with the events regarding the Baratheon, Robert's Rebellion.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite moments, and it's a feeling that I can't describe why I love it so much, is when Jaime talks about it with Ed. I was standing right here. Everyone's watching. And they describe the moment so vividly and so perfectly that it makes you want to dive into the history so well. That George R. R. Martin just writes these stories and builds these worlds so perfectly that when they talk briefly about it, that you want to know all about it.
Dude.
It's so great. And
things have happened in this world.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Lord of the Rings. Things have happened in Lord of the Rings, and they kind of bypass it, and then you get more context about it later, and you're like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Why Jaime recoils every time Ned calls him Kingslayer. It's great.
But we see these things now, like Storm's End is an absolute beauty. And
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's so intimidating when Lucerys flies. This entire scene is built like a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's like and it's suspense all the way through.
You could say it's spooky.
Ooh, see, we told
you it was a spooky episode.
Yeah, spooky. But
yes, it is like
it's like Jurassic Park. Like literally he lands. It's like and it's like storming and it's like raining and the clouds are building and then he walks and you think that the soldiers are intimidating enough. You're like, oh, they're gonna arrest him or something, or they're gonna do something because we're at a war now almost. Yeah. And then he turns around and he just lifts his head. Balon lifts his head and you're like, oh my god.
Oh, you mean Vagar, right?
Vagar.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it was Balon.
No, Balerion the Dread was the biggest dragon.
Was
of
the
all
biggest?
time,
Okay, but
who well. There is something in the books that said Balerion had a gash, saying that he got beaten by something that was bigger than him. So there might have been even bigger dragons. But in terms of what we've seen in Westeros, Balerion was the biggest. He died after Viserys rode him, and then Vhagar is now the biggest.
Vhagar, there you go.
But Vhagar, she is ginormous, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you look over, her head's just like there, and she's like, "What's up?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh no, Aemond is here," and there's a big and if that was me, I don't care if people call me a wuss or anything. I would have put that dragon in reverse. And I would have been like,
nope. It's like nope.
Yeah.
Beep,
Beep.
just back up,
Yeah,
like
exactly. I would have just been like, "Yeah, mom, they said no." Or like text, "Mom, can you pick me up?" You know, like,
we
exactly.
don't need the Baratheons. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
We don't really need
Exactly.
it. When you think about it.
But he wants to say dutiful to his mother, and he respects that they will treat him as a messenger, because that's what he is.
Yeah.
You know, and so we see for the first time Boros Baratheon.
Yeah. Stubborn and illiterate as ever.
Yeah.
As Baratheons go. Like it's very,
he's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very funny. But really cool to see like a Baratheon like not king, like, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously they're all houses are houses, and
also an evil Baratheon. You know, Stannis does evil things, but a lot of people sympathize with Stannis because he should be next in line for the throne.
Yeah.
A lot of people sympathize with Renly because he's a really good guy. A lot of people sympathize with Bobby B because he never really wanted to be king. But this Baratheon, I got a feeling he's not going to be as sympathetic.
No, especially when
Yeah.
he's like so like, oh, my father, like he's like not a man of honor, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
father like made that oath, I didn't. Like
Yeah.
I can pick whoever I want. Like, what do you have to offer me? And like,
And he was like, "Boy," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh gosh!" And do you see Aemond was already chatting up like his wife over,
Yeah.
like his betrothed?
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're that girl and you have to date like this, like. Well, in the book, she's more than down for it because she's a little bit cuckoo as well. Her name, I think, is like Jane Waters or something. She's a bastard of his. But yeah, so a lot of people think that's who Elizabeth Olsen is going to play next season.
oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, because she's a big figure in the war. But yeah, and it's crazy how Boros is remind me of my oath. Like, I was like,
I mean,
God,
this isn't
bro.
Rhaenyra's fault, but she should have had some backup plan.
Yeah.
You really sending him to, you know Boris Baratheon. You know who he is. You
Yeah.
know how tense the situation is. Jace and what's her face? They have it easy. They're
Yeah.
going to the easy jobs, to
Yeah.
go to the nice people who are like, yeah, of course we made that oath. We're gonna be okay. No, but you're going to a Baratheon whose father died, who made that oath where he didn't, to remind him what.
I would have given up Joffrey immediately.
Yeah.
Or I would have just been like, yeah, I'll marry one of your daughters. Like, I would have been. I understand.
You should have at least like get out of the situation easily. Like,
Yeah.
we'll discuss it or something like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, but he's also a child. You know, in the
Yeah.
books he's 13.
but
so,
this is good.
yeah.
This goes to show how Rhaenyra has raised her kids. She's, in a word, sheltered them, like closed them off from the world. Alicent's children have been ready for war all their lives.
Yeah, but
whether
also-
they like it or not.
But they're also psychopaths.
No,
you know?
yeah. But like, it shows you at the dinner scene, even Aegon, as much of a twerp he is, I wouldn't be surprised if he was good
Yeah.
in a fight or not.
Yeah.
Because like how Otto and Alicent has trained them so to be ready, a war coming, whether they've started it or not, and they're ready for it, and they have all the plans. Like,
Yeah.
I've kept them single to marry off whoever allies I need, and then Rhaenyra is like close them off, marry within the family,
Yeah.
and now no longer, you know what I mean, taking like no plans like whatsoever
Yeah.
to offer to whatever allies will be like, whose side am I going to be on?
Yeah.
And it's all great, you know what I mean?
I want to talk just a couple of differences in the books. In the books, Luke is also very much like, oh, but what about because they're also kin. You know, the Baratheons are also, they come from the Targaryens. Like, the Baratheons was a Targaryen bastard who made his own house Baratheon. But there's also the fact that, like, she is cousins to Rhaenys, and in the books, Luke mentions that, and Boros is like, "Oh yeah, she's kind of a WHO word, you know. She's I don't really know her. Who cares, you know?" And the reason why Aemond isn't going to get him, but apparently in the books, one of Boros's daughters goads him into going after him, and she goes, wow, he cut out your eye. What, did he also cut off your balls? And then that makes him angry, and he chases after him and kills him in the books. But yeah, in this one, he wants an eye for an eye.
Yeah, simple as that.
He
put a sapphire in his eye.
Yeah,
really cool.
Awesome, really cool.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I like how it was like you can still see his other eye, but like the shadow like just shows like it's like his other face is in the shadow, and you can just see that blue dot.
Yeah,
really cool. It's like an anime moment, but it's like done like realistically.
Yeah.
And really
he
cool.
is like an anime villain. Let's be honest.
Like it's like usually in anime, like why does that one eye shine like for no reason? But this one it makes sense.
It does.
Like it's really cool.
It does, but yeah.
But they try to fight. He tries to get him to fight. And he's like, not in my house. Yeah. And I was expecting to stop this madness in the name of the king. Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, he does. It gotta sound like
he's
that.
like, I don't want bad juju in my house. I already got enough bad luck as it is with this rain.
Yeah,
get out of my house.
He's
and
like, get out.
He's like, escort him out. And then this scene is like also like really slasher film. It's like raining even more now. And you're like, this ain't good. And like, I would have told him like, I would have just ran like immediately. Like, can you just hold him here for like a few seconds while I get my dragon? But he turns to the gate and he doesn't see Vagar.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh
no. And it's also like I didn't realize that like there was a gate, like an open gate there, because Vagar's body covers it and it's just darkness, and you see how empty it is, and you're like, oh my god, this thing is even bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
You know, like I think I would have done this if I was Luke. I might have done this differently. I might have been like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna walk. You know,
or like you know what? I'm feeling pretty tired. I'm gonna stay here for like an extra day.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay here for the night.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna get a ship. I'm gonna sail away.
Exactly. Or I might have just been like, oh, like, I'm sorry, Vermax. If you die, you die. But I'm gonna like get a hood on, and I'm gonna go into town. You
fly away. Or
yeah,
like.
You fly over there. I'm gonna go hide over there.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I would have done. But still, we get this awesome shot, and in the books, it talks about how Vermax could have probably outran Vagar, but in this one, because of the storm and he's still relatively young, and Vermax and Luke, they haven't had enough time to like bond. It's harder for him to get out of it, and it's easier for the big winged. It's like when a small person's like running against a big person, and then like 5 steps for him is like 2 steps for the big person.
Yeah, it's like a Dane, like outrunning like a Labrador. Like
exactly.
Like the Dane can just like walk and like stride over, and like the Labrador.
Good shot of Vagar
over him.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my
really,
god, just showing the size difference. In the books, they say 5 times bigger. And then we get this whole shot, and the whole idea of this is that Aemond is just trying to toy with him, maybe take an eye, but not kill him. When you kill him, that is when war starts.
Yeah.
You know, when you kill him, that is when it begins. And Aemond, he's not the mess up. Aegon is the mess up. You know, he doesn't mess up. He's the guy who takes action, who takes responsibility. You know, so he doesn't want to be the reason for that. He just wants to, scare his. But when you take, I'm trying to find a good analogy for this. If you take a gun to like a water gun fight, which is basically what he's doing with Vagar, who conquered all of Westeros alongside Balerion and Aegon and his sister wives, and this dragon who has eaten like 1,000 Dornish people and set fire to hundreds more. Like,
even if it's a regular big dragon, if you attack it with fire, you think you should just gonna obey and like not do anything?
They're
like,
basically nuclear weapons with like
wings,
or with opinions. You know, like it, and it harkens back. And a lot of people had an issue with the scene again, and I completely disagree.
I was like, why can't he control it or something like that? Like,
well,
you know what I mean?
Number one, I think the bond between dragons who like grew up with their rider are better. So I think Visenya, who rode Vagar originally, I think she would have had a better control on Vagar, like how Daemon has better control of Caraxes, you know.
Yeah.
And
even so, Daenerys had even
Trouble,
the dragons are not to be messed with. Like
that's what Jorah Mormont says in the show.
That's what Viserys says
in this show.
Yeah, like they're not something that we should have had control over.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the books, even people are like, oh, it only happened in the show. Daenerys couldn't really control Drogon and her other dragon. No, in the books it happens as well.
No,
it's
what?
it's like people just pick out sentences and what they pick and choose.
Drogon eats like innocent children in the books. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. You think like that's what they
that's
what they choose to ignore.
But yeah, Jorah, like in the books, he says they're dragons, Khaleesi. They can never be tamed, not even by their mother. And then Viserys in this series, he says they're a power we shouldn't have trifled with. And he talks about how they led to the doom of Valyria, which we haven't heard of in the books, but I think that's really interesting.
Arax, right? Arax attacks Vagar with fire, and then like Vagar's like, oh, it's Vietnam. I'm back in the war again, and he starts chasing after him. And then like he's like, no, and even Luke is saying, no, Arax, no, like don't. What are you doing? You know
because Arax is scared.
Yeah,
you know, so he attacks. So it's like I love how at first they're talking to them in Valerian, and as they become more and more panicked, they go, no, Vagar, and like still when Vagar's chomping him up to little bits, he's like, no. Vagar, no,
maybe he's still alive. Please spit him out.
Yeah, he's like, no, stop.
No,
Even though he gets chomped. Like at least he got a beautiful view, you know, before he died. And I saw this meme that was like, after audience finally got what they wanted, they put up the brightness, but they paid the iron price for it. You know, but that shot of Luke just getting devoured by, and the way he looks over it, he goes like this, like that's gonna help him from like.
But it's just an instant reaction.
It's instinct reaction, yeah. But it's just like, God, man, it is so brutal and scary and crazy. It was so well done.
But it's like brilliant. It's like a jump scare, but it the entire scene, line for line, like the line that I went to, like, oh yeah, it is true. Yeah. It's like, and then the storm broke.
Yep.
And the dragons dance.
Like
Luke emerges from the storm and it's clear, and then the war has
begins.
started.
It's the calm before the storm.
It's like literally like pictured, like frame, all of it is like from the book. Like it's perfect, and it's brilliant.
It's really sad because Luke was like, I don't want Driftmark because that means everybody will die, and he tragically dies first. You know, the person who you just didn't think, you know, would. And it just makes you think maybe these teenagers shouldn't have dragons. You know,
maybe no one should.
Maybe no one should have dragons. Exactly.
Maybe we shouldn't have teenagers like involved. You know what I mean? It's just.
And the acting from Aemon was really good, and a lot of people were like, "Why are you making him not just a one-note anime villain?" You know,
that was my issue too. Is that this entire show, everyone wants the Greens to be like, bad guy. I'm gonna be the cause of all the problems of all the war, and I'm gonna be the only bad qualities of all the characters or whatever. And like, oh, this is stupid that happens because of an accident or something like that. That is not how things go. It's like, but this scene was like, it was great, and you know he flew. You think he just he lands the dragon in King's Landing. Hey, how'd it go? I'm gonna go to my room.
Exactly.
It's like, good night.
It was like, how'd it go, honey? And it was like, He's like, I don't want to talk about it.
He's like looking at his dinner food. He's like, it's like, what are we having? We're having I'm trying to make a pun or something. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up and he's like, yeah, I meant to kill him. Yeah, you know, like it makes sense.
So he wouldn't believe I like get off Vagar for like 1 second, and he goes attacks like this other.
It's crazy
story happened. I was drinking and flying like.
That face at the end was so like, my mom is gonna be so mad at me.
She's gonna take my keys away. She's gonna take my dragon away.
She's gonna take my dragon. Exactly. It's because it was like that look, you know.
It's literally like when you hit a curb like really bad in your car and everyone sees it. You're like, you just turn off the music and you're like.
Oh my God, it is like that. It's like, oh my God, it is. Yeah. But before we go to the final scene, that scene where Daemon sings to Vermithor was really nice.
Who's Vermithor?
Vermithor was the dragon who Daemon was singing to.
But
Vermithor is a...
Who does he belong
to? So there are many dragons right now who don't belong to anybody. So Vermithor, I believe, was ridden by somebody, but even still, there are wild dragons who have never had
So
a
is he
rider.
singing to him to plan to give him to somebody?
He's probably going to give him to his daughter,
Yeah.
or one of the other dragon riders who I can't talk about. But yeah, so there are other, and also this is why it's important. Like when Targaryens have bastards, like we saw at the child fighting pit, those bastards can ride dragons, and therefore one of the major wards of Westeros, the Blackfire Rebellion, is all about a Targaryen bastard who can ride a dragon, and that's literally or he doesn't ride a dragon. Sorry, the
Guys,
dragons are gone.
dragons are cool now. I want to
Yeah.
read the Aragon series all over again because
Yeah.
I read it and I was like, yeah, dragons. So, like it's
Dragons.
like dragons, but man, this show like really like puts like the
Yeah.
danger level on them and
Yeah.
like makes it go to show they're not just cool toys that you can just
Yeah.
mess with. They're really something. That,
And then Rhaenyra's final scene, like it was really nice seeing Daemon hold her hand and stuff.
it was like the turning point that Daenerys had,
Yeah.
but good,
But
like,
good, yeah.
and handled well.
And I think, and I genuinely think I really liked the theme. Like you heard her theme, but it was like her going mad, and we still heard the and then it was like the violins were growing, and she turns around and stuff. And this is what I'm saying. And when I talked about earlier, I'm just going to talk about this real quick about the books. The books is a historical anthology from second-hand or third-hand views. They don't know anything about the true drive of these characters. It's not POV like Game of Thrones, right? So when people say, oh, Rhaenyra in the books wouldn't have done that. And I'm like, how do you know? You don't know. Because in the books, they say that Alicent and Rhaenyra just wanted to have power, right? Which is completely shallow. I think there are only a couple of characters in Game of Thrones who only want power. They usually want power and something else, or they don't want power and it comes to them.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is how Rhaenyra gets there. This was all build up. It's her anime villain backstory.
Yeah.
Like this was all build up to that stuff. There's going to be such amazing moments that I was like, when I saw the first episode, I was like, for those book readers, how is the moment of blood and cheese going to happen? And I'm like, what? How is that going to happen? But now I can see it. I can see it happening. And she is going to commit some more crimes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really exciting
But
to
it's
see.
like it's like people are like so hypocritical. Like by the end of this, it's like, oh, way too many time skips. But also at the same time, it's like, oh, it's gonna cut off. We couldn't get the dance of the. You want more? You want more scenes to build character, which we already did, but you still want it to be longer. But apparently, we did too many time skips because that is literally what happens. And apparently, too many time skips, but yet you wanted to rush to the war, actually. But
this is not like Game of Thrones. There were a lot of years of peace, and I bet you those same people, if they stretched it out for longer without those time skips, they would have gone, oh, this is boring. This is so boring. Yeah, people are going to find things to complain about, and I think that a lot of people just miss the outrage that came with Game of Thrones and the viewership that came with that, and the likes that came with that.
they don't know they have something good in their hands and they
Yeah.
can't appreciate it. Like
Exactly.
unfortunately,
Exactly.
But great season.
Yeah. Sorry we're talking about this for so long, you guys, but this is the end of HOTD for now.
Yeah.
Until 2 years, and hopefully we'll still be around, and you'll still be around when we talk about it here.
Yeah.
Final thoughts about the series, Edgar, before we move on.
Give it an 8.5 out of 10. I really was a really big surprise. Really enjoyed it. A lot of great writing. I wouldn't say it's a better starter season than Game of Thrones has.
Yeah.
Because they're different books. They're like the fact that they managed to make this historical like book into a great story is fantastic.
Phenomenal.
And all the actors are casted perfectly.
Yes.
It was great, a surprise. It didn't have like all the, like I said, its only faults is because its story isn't like point of view and like completely written like, oh, I know exactly how this character is because it's exactly described and written like that. But they had to go off so much. I mean, George R. R. Martin helped, but like, they weren't originally written like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that it turned out this great is phenomenal.
Favorite actor? Favorite character?
I like Allison's a lot.
Allison's
Yeah.
good. That's a good choice.
Otto and Allison. Otto, it's Otto.
Reese Evans.
Oh
yeah,
my
really
god, I
good.
love him. If you've seen like Olivia Cook's Instagram,
Yes,
like the
yeah.
behind it, oh, so great.
Because he's a comedian.
so wholesome.
You know?
Like they're so great.
It's just so funny that him and Patty Considine, they're comedians. You know, so it's like,
Dude, I'm watching
it's so funny.
the world's end that he's
Yeah,
in.
that he's
like,
in.
He's like, well, look at that, like
Yeah, I
mysterious,
know.
but
It's
so
funny.
he's hilarious in that
Yeah.
movie, and Hot Fuzz. But all
Yeah.
these actors are great. I would say like Otto and Allison are my favorites.
Yeah.
I loved Olivia Cook in Ready Player One. That's like when I discovered her,
Yeah.
and then I watched Thoroughbreds. She's in that film as well, and then I watched like a season of Bates Motel that she's also in. Great actress.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I can't wait to see more. of
Favorite
her.
dragon?
It's Vagar.
It's Vagar, yeah.
Oh man, that dude is a behemoth, and he is like so intimidating. But Caraxi
it's
is
a
cool.
girl, by the way.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's a girl.
Sorry. It's
Use her pronouns correctly.
no,
Edgar.
I'm sorry. Don't cancel me. No, yeah, she is
Yeah.
she is queen.
She is the queen.
Yeah.
She's the queen of Westeros, especially since
she is a literal atomic bomb.
Yeah,
Like,
and no man can kill her.
I want to
either.
see her in
Yeah.
action. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
Who's yours? Who's your favorite actor?
Viserys, Patty Considine has become one of my favorite actors of all time. The show is a 10 out of 10.
If you haven't
far.
seen Hot
Yeah.
Fuzz or World's End, I would check
Yeah.
it out. He's hilarious.
Oh yeah,
in
he's
that.
great.
Yeah.
But like the show is a 10 out of 10, and if it does like season 2 well, we still haven't seen my favorite character outside of the main books. Kragan Stark is awesome. And I'm I'm excited to see Winterfell. Will they make it better? Well, if they make it look better,
You described
than it
King's.
already
You
does,
hyped up King's Landing for me. I want to not King's
Yeah.
Landing. You hyped up
Storm's
Castle
End?
Rock.
Oh,
for
Castle
me.
Rock,
Castle
yes.
Rock for me. I want to see Castle
Mhm.
Rock.
Yeah,
now.
you should look at some of the illustrations in the book.
They're
awesome.
the illustrations are trending now. They're just showing
Mhm.
up on. They're great.
Oh
Like,
yeah, dude, it's awesome. And I just loved how this show, the heraldry, we talked about this before. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss were embarrassed that they were making fantasy, but this feels like fantasy, like all the way from the map to the costumes to the different looks of the dragons.
Yeah,
amazing.
One could argue that it kind of worked luckily in their favor because Song and Ice and Fire feels like post-apocalyptic,
Yeah.
but it feels like after like a world that no longer exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why like I'm glad they're making this feel more magical and like
Yeah.
fantasy.
It's a time of magic. 'Cause,
Yeah, and-
magic in a world of ice and fire comes with dragons.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dragons right now.
Yeah. So it makes it kind of works out that
Yeah.
way, but it's really great.
Yeah, I love all the characters. I think a shout out needs to go to the sea snake. We didn't even talk about him this episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
really great. He pulled up. He's
yeah,
like,
he did
yeah.
pull
I was
up,
like, if
yeah.
if you like seriously, bro,
Yeah.
if you don't side with them, I'm like, bro,
Yeah, come
you,
on,
your
man.
wife literally started a war, and for what? And like,
Yeah,
and you're not gonna side
exactly.
with them. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I agree with you. I think his actor did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna die, but he pulled through.
Yeah.
great.
Rhaenys is also another good character.
Oh
but-
yeah,
but,
she was
Yeah.
her job this episode was like giving her the approval eye. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
doing good. Like, you know what I mean?
It's hard not to look past Damon because I think Matt Smith
Damon is
owned
the
character.
obvious
He's the
like,
obvious pick,
standout.
which makes me not want to pick him. you
No,
know?
yeah, exactly.
So,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Damon might be my favorite character, but
He
I
has
think
my favorite lines
yeah,
too.
I think
like,
Viserys has the best actor. If he doesn't get at least nominated for an Emmy, it completely ruins the entire award show. Like, there's no reason to even have it at that point because he's so great.
what other shows? I mean, Bob Odenkirk.
Better
bro.
Call Saul.
Better Call
yeah.
Saul. Bob
Yeah.
Odenkirk.
Let's move on. My favorite actor, my favorite dragon's Caraxes.
Yeah,
lanky-
really,
lanky-
I like his roar. It's
Yeah.
not a roar. It's like a.
Yeah.
It's, no, not like that.
That's what he sounds like.
But,
like
an
that.
editor should just like take his voice
Yeah.
and like put him
Here,
into.
I can do it better. He's like, he does like.
Let's
a
move
little-
on. Let's
yeah.
go.
No, but I love him. He's like a lanky little noodle. You
No,
know?
yeah.
I love him. He's great.
Ben, let's get back to anime. Who cares about
Who
this
cares
live
about-
action
yeah,
stuff?
who cares about this live action?
Like, you know?
Gross, get out of here,
Yeah.
Edgar. Let's drop some hot.